So what else? What do you guys want to talk about today?
I have an idea of what to talk about. I was looking at Asif and I were having a conversation, and
don't tell him about the butthole stuff.
Okay, all right.
That's all I want to talk about now.
Okay, different topic then for today. That's what we're going to talk about.
It's over, man. Sorry.
All right, and that's episode 50, whatever. See you next
Don't
week.
tell him about the butthole stuff. Oh, that was the whole conversation. All right.
That was it.
Episode 57.
No, we were talking about something.
I think I've been gone for too long.
Yeah, I guess.
Conversation's just gone downhill. It's all about butts now. I'm like,
Yeah. The podcast has changed, okay? We have 20 steering committees. No.
That's right.
We're deciding the fate of the podcast. Okay, go ahead.
Asif and I were talking about something, and this image popped into my mind of like seeing like a room and being outside of that room, like seeing the doorway, and it's just a completely crowded room. Everyone's got their back turned toward me, right? And they're all focused on something that's going on in the center of the room, on the stage, whatever, right? And I'm trying to get into this room, and I don't want to push anyone, right? And I'm like trying to find creative ways to like maybe find another door or something like that. And Asif was like, "You're gonna have to push some people," right? And so I did some writing on it, and I was looking at it for myself, and I realized like this point that I had within me of avoiding conflict, right? So I was looking at the word conflict, and it's such a great word because like if you look at a story or a movie or anything like that, right? Conflict is what motivates the plot. Conflict is what moves the story along, right? Conflict is an opposition to an idea or a person or whatever. It's opposition. That's really all it is, right? But without the opposition, for instance, if we were to just go along with whatever story we're given, nothing would change. Without conflict in a story, there would be no story. It would be a boring ass story. And
well, hold on, stop. I'm kidding. I want to jump in before other people start not seeing the full point.
Okay, go for it.
We don't need conflict,
podcast, right? Like
we don't need conflict for excitement and entertainment in life. I don't give a fuck about conflict for the sake of entertainment and for excitement and motivation and all that stuff. So although in general, that's how people look at it, but the point you're making about if something is going on that's not best and you want it to change, then what are you going to have to go through? Conflict. So you're not going through conflict because you need it, because it motivates you or some shit like that, because conflict in that context actually
Cameron, you're thinking of contrast, dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not talking about contrast. I'm talking about conflict.
Right. But that's kind of how you were talking about it in that one moment.
Yeah.
Right. Was like not being boring. Right. So because people say like, well, if we don't have any conflict, I mean, your life would be boring.
Right.
It's like, I want you to think about the best moments of your life. Can you guys think of one? Like, what was like a moment where you just felt like really great?
Just like laying.
Can you guys think of one?
You know, just laying in the grass, like out in the field, being.
What about you, Jess?
Acing making a loaf of bread.
Okay.
That's a great moment.
Mitch?
Yeah, going on a walk, like around a cool place in nature in a city.
Asif?
Just hanging out and chatting with everybody at the clubhouse or hanging out with family at the barbecue or something.
Yeah. Like for me, recently, like just sitting in like our dining table outside with the family and everyone's just sitting there and eating dinner, like stuff like that. The moment someone starts manipulating and throwing a tantrum or getting upset or there's conflict, that's not where I'm like, oh yes. Do you know what I mean? Like this idea that conflict is something you need for life to be great. that's just, I think, because people don't even have any access to those moments really at all of like serenity. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, that's not an option. So we need conflict because otherwise life will be boring. It's like you're just looking for excitement.
Yes, so I've experienced this firsthand where I grew up with brothers, right? So growing up, there wasn't too much of that. And if there was, it was mostly just physical, beat it out, be done. And then I went to college and I was put in a apartment with 3 other girls.
Oh boy.
And these 3 girls were all from like the same small town area. They laugh.
And I was like, I'm out of here, don't look. I'm not on the podcast.
And so they were all from the same like small town area, and I didn't grow up around them. I didn't know the people they would chat about, but that's what they would do. They would chat about people all day long, other people, other conflicts, and then they would stir up stuff like on purpose. And like they would tell me, yeah, it's fun to create drama. I do it on like they literally spoke about it like out in the open, like nonchalant, like it was nothing. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy that you literally go out of your way to create drama.
In that moment.
And that's when I realized.
Y'all are some bitches.
So, okay, but this is a reason why women get divorced later in life. Because it's like they haven't really built a family around the concept of principle. Even for the women who have marriages and kids and everything, all the things you think would make them happy, right? But they haven't built it around principle, and they're still looking within themselves for that excitement. Same reason guys, you know, when they're 45 or whatever middle age is, like when they go and they get like a sports car and all this stuff, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're over, well, I mean, if you have a family, okay? If you have a family and you're interested in sports cars, like, why? Like, who are you trying to get to fuck you at this point? Like, your wife just doesn't just want to do it no matter what. All I have to do if I want to have sex with my wife is stand in the kitchen and like with like an erection and be like, see this? And it's like, oh, okay, let's go. I don't need to go rev up an engine or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Isn't
it's
that
not
funny?
that hard. It is, but I'm saying it's not difficult.
When it's hard, things get easy. Right.
That's the image that guys have, is like, oh, I have to be this way in order to get this.
It's not even conscious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
This is the whole point of this process. Well, one of the points is to bring all of that into your conscious awareness so you can actually deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
Like, instead of just going along with it. Yeah, go ahead.
here's like my perspective on that. I think sports cars are sexy. I think it's fun to ride in them. I think they look cool and they're
but
great
when you
lead
have
generation.
kids- oh yeah. Now, if you're running a business and you want to put a Lambo out front of your office to attract all the little 20-year-old guys who want that,
Or the young Jessicas. Yeah.
or the Jesses. But look, when you guys have kids and you got 2 little kids running around and
Of
you're
course.
basically wearing an apron all day and digging in the garden and shit, you're not going to care about that. And you might still think that a sports car is sexy. Like, I can look at, like, I saw this brand new Corvette, you know, and it was like all they're really cool, you know.
I've
And
seen
it looks cool. Like,
Yeah.
it looks really cool. I don't have an internal desire for it, but it's cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying like if there was an opportunity, I might drive it. I don't know. Probably, I just don't care about that, to be honest. Like, and I used to like that kind of stuff. I remember when, I was buying a utility vehicle last week, and I was at this marine motorsports place, and they had the showroom, and they mostly had a bunch of motorcycles and stuff in the showroom. And so as I'm waiting for the guy to go check on something to come back, I'm just looking at the motorcycles, and they had a Honda, I think it's called a CBR. I think it's a CRV or CBR, but it's a really cool looking like Honda motorcycle, right? And I remember, and then I realized in that moment when I was looking at it, oh yeah, I used to be obsessed with that motorcycle when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Like, not like way over the top obsessed, but like, you know, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna have one of those. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't care about that. Why the fuck would I want to risk riding on a motorcycle? You know what I mean? I have a family, I have responsibility. Why would I even risk it? For what? For the excitement of driving it? Like,
Right.
So, and then it's like, there's that inner drive within a man of like, it's to attract the little yummy hot girl,
Well, thoughts.
right? Who also thinks it's sexy.
Subconscious.
But if you already have it, why the fuck are you trying to still do it? Because you haven't questioned like, oh wait, I've already got that. I don't need to run that program anymore.
But it's like people aren't even aware, like I'll talk to people, I'll be like, there's 2 points that all your thoughts come back to. You know what they are? They're like,
In my
right, exactly, right. So I'm just explaining to them. They're like, is
No,
that true?
it's being a good person and
And doing what's best for the world.
and serving the Lord.
I'm like, okay.
Hold on, real quick. If your whole idea is serving the Lord, right? Why?
it's gonna
So
be
you can go to heaven.
So you can go to heaven. Why? So you can. It's like
So you can get those thoughts in heaven.
it's like you just became a billionaire. It's like you just became a billionaire. If you go to heaven, you're a billionaire. That's like what it is, right? It's the billionaire lifestyle.
Wow, it's like the path of least resistance.
It's like you're fucking evil. You just want something for nothing. Anyway,
That's
that's it.
Yeah, it's like you get
so
it, you get
true.
it without actually doing anything, and then it becomes this really devious thing where it's like, no, if you just believe that Jesus died in the specific way so that you could get out of jail free card.
If you just believe
They're
that
like
the Son of God went along with us murdering him so that we could be forgiven for things like murdering people. If you believe that,
then
you'll become a billionaire. And also just it's like those click on this picture shit we were talking about last time.
Claim it.
Claim it.
type 555 in the chat. Quick.
Call 1-800.
Just do
Okay.
5 hosannas.
But within tying both of those points together,
Which points?
Lamborghini and Jesus.
Okay.
Lamborghini
Jesus drives a Lamborghini.
Lamborghini Jesus is the title of this
Fucks
episode.
all the bitches because of that thing.
So if I were to look at, say, money was not an object, right? The Lamborghini would not be the first car that I would want. And honestly, a Lamborghini wouldn't be a car that I want. Maybe just a nice, practical Porsche SUV that I could fit the family in, but it's, a nicer, higher end sports car, but it's still
Hey,
like
Lamborghini
practical.
does have an SUV.
Okay, anyways, and then
I don't want
but that wouldn't be my first car, right? Like I'm looking at let's get a practical sports utility vehicle to drive around our property here. There's like a few different like machinery type things that I would want and that we would use practically here. Those things I would want first, like an outdoor kitchen that has a pizza cooker. Like there's a lot more like practice, a freaking greenhouse. I mean, come on, like there's a lot of stuff that I'd rather get before getting that. But then after all of that is in place, having something like that, as long as it's practical, I think it would be a great, almost a luxury, but also I definitely see how I could bring in
But
lead
what's
generation.
interesting is you could literally just rent a Ferrari for the weekend and put it in front of your office on recruiting day.
Right.
Like it's not that expensive to rent a
I don't know.
Ferrari or a Lamborghini for a day.
They better have some good insurance. I mean, we're downtown Minneapolis. Like,
True.
The bourgeoisie.
But how many of those people burning and looting shit want that?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying they wouldn't break it. I'm just saying like all those people would want that.
yeah,
Why? Like
it's a symbol of
it
power.
doesn't- what does it actually do for you?
Yeah. So now that you guys have given all this context to what
So back to what Drake was talking about.
going back to conflict, because I wasn't done making my point.
Well, but hold on, look. I challenged what you said.
Right.
So just not because of you, just because to clarify for anybody else. So that's conflict.
No, I
isn't it?
appreciate
Like,
you doing that. I
No, but
appreciate you doing
I'm just saying for everybody else, like
Yeah.
that's all conflict is. Like you're just going against something to like come to a resolution. Right?
Well, that's confrontation, right? Like facing it head on, especially something uncomfortable, right? But like what I was, thank you for giving that context, because I did not mean like, oh, you just want to go out and have a lot of conflict with people and just start shit. But in the context of changing yourself, of growing yourself, of actually becoming different than who you are and becoming better, making decisions that are best, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have to oppose the ideas that you have You're gonna have to oppose the beliefs, the way that you've lived, all of that stuff, and then get to the point where you are, oh, okay, you change that, so you're not in agreement with it anymore. Conflict is also a disagreement. I'm not saying go out and just like start fights, but that said, you have to seek the conflict within yourself. And I, again, not saying go out and start drama or anything like that, but the reason why, well, okay, I'll speak for myself. I could see within myself this point of wanting to avoid conflict. And I was thinking it was wanting to avoid conflict with other people. But the reality is, it's just wanting to avoid that conflict within myself of facing things within myself that I haven't allowed myself to become fully aware of just yet, you know? Like what you were saying earlier about like bringing things to conscious awareness so that you can actually change it. But
Why do you think that's painful, Drake?
why do you think that's painful?
Yeah.
Because you identify with like those parts of yourself. You identify with like that personality, and it feels like you're letting go of yourself. That's like really what I see within that is, I think the major fear.
What is it that you were asking? What is painful? I was looking something up to bring into this. What was it?
Conflict within yourself.
Yeah.
But from what?
What do you mean?
What does it mean, conflict within yourself? Like, what do you mean by that?
Like, okay. Realizing that there's something that you want to change, something that is not going the way that like you would want or expect or anything like that. But then not willing to do or change yourself in order to change that result, right? There's a conflict there, right? Or not being aware of it.
Okay.
Because
but okay, let's look at it though. So change yourself means do something differently.
Yeah.
So either we don't want to do it because of some reason, or we have a belief we can't do it, or we shouldn't do it, or are not capable of doing it. Those are I would say the only, maybe there's other things, but those are the main points. Like if you're trying to change something about yourself, it's something that you're not doing that you want to do, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. So what is it that's preventing you from just being that thing? Like, I want to change. Yeah.
Holding on to those beliefs or personality or whatever.
What does that mean, holding on to it?
Like,
how do you hold on to a belief versus how do you let go of a belief?
Massive's got it pretty much. It's just like this.
But it's a good point, because we talk about it figuratively, but like, what does that actually?
I mean, I'm opening it up so people can actually understand.
Consider the practicality of it.
Just talk about like, oh, just changing yourself. Like, what does it actually mean? Because
it's like, Drake, you've walked your process enough where this, like what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying like pretty quickly, but it's like,
I mean, you should. We talk.
Yeah, but the point of this is to have other people understand it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so holding on to a belief would be like not wanting to change, or not seeing that you can change.
What's an example of something that you've already changed within? So we're not talking about anything that's current, but like something that, or something you know someone else has, or that you can relate to, you can explain. Like, what's an example of something where you had to change something? And yeah, what's an example, like a concrete example?
I mean, like when I tell this story often, but like seeing that I give tacit approval and I wanted to stop that. That was something that I had to change, that I didn't know that I could change. That was like a personality trait that I thought.
Okay, and what's an example where you didn't give tacit approval when you normally would have?
Where I didn't give tacit approval.
Yes, like where you proved that you changed it.
I was there in Punta Cana.
Okay, yeah.
we were talking with this gym member, and I didn't process his tacit approval point at that point. And we were sitting with him on the grass beside the white part, or they were playing the Super Bowl
That's right.
outside on the beach. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
There was like
Oh yeah. I was thinking of
Cabo.
Aruba, but we also did that in Punta Cana.
Right, exactly, right. And so we were just talking to this gym member outside, and he was like telling us about his goals, and it didn't really make sense. It was not adding up, but what he wanted and what he was doing and like his dream and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, okay. And then Drake's like, wait, hold on. You just said you want this, but this is what you're doing. And you also want this that's directly in conflict with that. Like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, what? Are you allowed to do
Are you like seriously trying to support this guy right now?
Yeah. So that was
Are you like a gym member, like supporting other gym members?
Bettering his life? No.
So the point is,
Bro, just let him fuck up his life and then
Stop.
he's a good person after he dies.
Chess, you're not allowed to make that joke. No.
What did he say? What did he say?
He said, stop.
Stop.
But Drake had told, it was really cool because he had talked about the tacit approval point, how he's been processing that on a self-leaders call before that event. And I got to see it in person. I'm like, oh, that's what that looks like.
Okay, so there's an example, right? So, all right. I'm just making sure like there's a because somebody can say I changed. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying somebody else could say I changed something and then they didn't. So it's like, well, it's not real, right?
In front of all my
you know what I'm saying
friends?
though? But somebody can say that they changed something and they didn't, right? So this is a case where everyone can see, okay, that's something you wouldn't have done before, right?
Right.
Because of some points, but then you realized a certain point, you corrected it in yourself, you changed it, and then there's a living proof that you changed it and then that would potentially support that person, right?
I have a
It
witness.
was verified by another person, such as Asif saying,
I was
you do
I'm gonna get that notarized later.
Right.
Okay, so then the question is, okay, so what was it that before would have prevented you from doing that you had to actually let go of? Because to say like, well, I just don't want to let go of, I don't want to change. Like, well, but what is the thing that you're onto that you have to let go of to do it here?
This is a really good point because this is the difference between focusing on the how or the why. It's like, okay, I want to be a better public speaker. Okay, cool. So just change the way you speak and just start expressing more and don't be afraid. It's like, yeah, but the thing that's causing you to be afraid and want to keep your voice quiet subconsciously, unconsciously is because you're afraid of failure. You're afraid of judgment and all these things. And for example, in this context about it, but it's like, there's something underlying because you want to change. Everybody wants to change, but there's a prerequisite to change that people aren't willing to do, which is, it's like, okay, I want to take 100% responsibility for my life. Okay, what is it that might be causing you subconsciously to not take 100% responsibility? It's every point.
It's kind of like being uncomfortable. Like it's like people strive to be comfortable in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if they have to go through something that's going to cause discomfort, they're going to do everything possible to not have to do that. Even if going through the discomfort would cause even more comfort and like their life would be better.
Exactly. Now look at all the people in this world who don't have any real level of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And so you meaning people generally don't care about those people having that comfort as long as you have comfort. So you're not willing to give them what you would like to receive.
And the number one,
even though you already have what they would like right now, but you're not willing to put yourself in a level of discomfort to be able to support them, which would then guarantee your comfort.
When it comes to the point of physically doing something different, where you can then take 100% responsibility, a lot of the times in terms of like the general people that we would talk to or talk about is like, it comes to that point, they're like, okay, the universe is going to take care of that. It comes to that point of change, and like, okay, God's going to take care of that. So the point is, if you're not willing to let go of that belief, then you're not going to be able to take 100% responsibility, right? So everybody wants to take 100% responsibility, but you have to let go of this thing. So going back to Drake's, the tacit approval point, he's like, I want to change. I want to be able to confront people on whatever, but there's something that you have to let go of underneath.
Well, what was that, Drake?
Yeah.
For me, it was this memory that I had of
a carrot.
What's that?
A carrot.
A carrot. That's what it was.
That
The memory of a carrot.
It was the carrot guy.
Wait, was it like cooked so it was like mashy, or was it like raw so it was crunchy?
It was a raw carrot being in his hand.
I was
That's
holding
just
the
being
carrot.
yelled at by an African immigrant.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
there's an actual story there. It was raw and crunchy.
But this was
Anyways, go ahead, George.
But it wasn't about the carrot. It was this memory that I had when I was really young, about 4 years old, of just basically creating a rule for myself because of the conflicts that I was having with my mother, of just avoiding conflict with her, keeping your head down, and just whatever she says, go along with it, because it's makes life much easier. And I didn't realize that I was like living my life by this rule and projecting it onto other people who are not my mother. And then like in this moment of like realization of that, by using TechnoTutor, doing the self-forgiveness process, mostly using TechnoTutor though, in this moment, I realized like, oh shit, that's why I do this. And then I was able to like kind of just like, well, I don't have to continue, like rationally look at, I don't have to continue doing that. These people aren't my mother and they're not going to get me in trouble. Let's see what happens if I just disagree with them. And the interesting thing about it is I had tried in the past to just disagree with someone, and they always like overpowered me or dominated me in some way. Like it never really worked out. So it wasn't like for lack of trying, but when I had made this shift, when I could see like clearly the reason why I was doing it, and then let it go, as in like rationalize like really clearly for myself of like, oh, I don't have to keep doing that. Like that doesn't even make sense anymore. There was no emotional point within me anymore. Then when I disagreed with these other people, they couldn't overpower me, because what would happen in the past is I would disagree with someone and they would challenge it and I would immediately cower back and just like, oh, sorry. But now, like, it's not to say that like I speak and people just listen to what I say. Like, oh, he disagreed with me.
It's not like you start dominating other people.
Right.
It's not like you're Jesus driving a Ferrari.
It's not like it's Jesus driving a Ferrari.
Right. It's not Jesus driving a Ferrari. But when they challenge me now, it's like, okay, but you're not seeing this, and this. Like it's not a point of like I have to hide now, or I have to cower,
not like
or I have
some
to fight,
emotional game where
You're not
Right.
taking it personally.
Right. Exactly. And so now it's like it's completely different when I have a disagreement with someone.
So this is the thing in sales. Do people buy based off logic or emotion? Do people make any decisions? How does everybody make all the decisions? Based off logic or emotion?
Yeah, emotion.
Right. And so it's, 80% emotion, 20% logic. Unless you solve the emotional point, there's no amount of logic that will get somebody to make a decision. Get yourself to make a decision. Yeah, but it just makes sense. Like I should be, going to the gym this many days a week, or I should be doing this. It just makes sense. We don't naturally just do what we see makes sense.
No, it's like you start looking in the mirror and you're like getting fat or whatever, and you're like, oh God.
You feel a bunch of shame and guilt, and then somebody closes you on going to the gym, and you're like, okay.
Or you like start imagining how it could be different and like what your
Yeah.
life would be like. You're like selling yourself emotionally, and then all the logic comes in.
Exactly, right? Whether it just be through seeing other people who go to the gym, you're like, okay, yeah, so that thing works. The point is, within your own process, there's two dynamics of, for example, specific process support, practical support. That's my Bernard impression. When you're doing your writings, you want to go back and find the memory that's triggering the emotion aspect of things. And then after you walk yourself through that, because in that memory, you likely didn't have a parent or a quote unquote authority figure to walk you through and explain what's happening, like what Cameron and Katie do for their children. You didn't have that. That's why it registered as a memory that's like, oh shit, okay, I got this defense mechanism that doesn't really make sense, but I'm going to use it because that's what I see will help me survive better. So you walk yourself through that memory. And after you walk yourself through that, the emotion, that will solve the emotion. because you're bringing rationality to that point. And that you experience emotion when you don't have rationale, when you can't come up with the reasons by definition. And so after that, then the logic point is easy. You're like, oh, cool. So then what would be best? What would just make most sense for me to do in this situation? But first you have to solve the emotional point. So for everybody who's trying to like change something about themselves, it's not going to work unless if you walk your process. But the problem that people are running into, some of the people that I've talked to over the last couple of weeks, they're not progressing in DIP light, and they're not developing the experience necessary to go through the layers of themselves. But the reality is, in order for you to transcend the point of tacit approval, it's like you have to be okay. Like, I'm not saying you have to be a pro. I'm just saying you have to have some experience of being able to go into yourself and be like, okay, so there's something causing this. How do I find it? I'll write until I get to the point. My point is, you don't just have that, because you might have a history of writing in your diary, but when you write in your diary, you just like justify all your bullshit and then move on. You have to go through DIP light to work that out. You have to go through DIP light to,
but the starting point of what you're writing is that you're gonna go physically fucking change it
right
in the world, and therefore, because you're changing a pattern from what exists into something else, you are going to experience conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So if your whole starting point is avoiding conflict, you can write all day long and do DIP and do all this stuff. And I would say you can use TechnoTutor, it won't have any effect, but it will, because this is why TechnoTutor is the underlying key, because the more you use that, even if you're not yet fully being self-honest, you'll start to see, oh, this is what Asif's telling me. I need to look at the conflict. So that's why if I'm supporting a person and they have to choose between, do I do DIP first or TechnoTutor, I'm always going to suggest TechnoTutor for first before anything, if you have to, because it's going to get you to the point where you can actually see what needs to change and understand common sense, like, oh, okay, I'm going to actually have to experience conflict. I need to let go of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what will happen is you'll just turn it into like just going through the points to justify who you already are and try to convince yourself that you're already a good person and you're already doing things and you don't need to measure things or figure out what you need to change. It's like, just by existing, you're doing your process. It's like, that'd be like saying just by standing in the kitchen, you're doing the process of making a cake. No. Like, are you just expecting the flour bag just picks itself up and starts measuring itself out in a cup? Like, you have to go over there and get the bag. And you have to experience the conflict of like, I don't know, like, what if I put too much flour, or, I don't like, okay, I'll give you guys a practical example. Like, I'm building a new project, right? This is Cameron's woodworking.
Yeah, what the heck? You haven't shared what it is yet.
Everyone wants to know. I know, I was thinking about posting, like, what is Cam up to now, right? My neighbor comes over, her name's Shirley. She's always like, oh, look at you, little busy beaver.
Busy beaver. Cameron's a busy.
I cut wood for her on my miter saw, right? So,
I thought you were gonna say a busy bee. I've never heard busy.
Never heard busy beaver? Yeah, she's like, oh, look at you, little busy beaver.
That's cute.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm building an outdoor bench. Actually, I'm gonna build two, but I'm building one at a time. So I'm gonna build one first, get everything done before build the second one. I'll show you a couple pictures real quick. So Katie, now that I built that run for the chicken coop, she's like, all right, I want a bench
for the chickens.
Well, they need somewhere to sit.
Yeah, they've been running all this time. Give them a place to sit.
Chicken run. That's good.
Right.
Are these chickens gonna lay eggs, or are these the kind you eat?
Those chickens are for laying eggs, I think.
Okay.
Are you
These
gonna
are
put
be
these?
the best eggs?
Are these benches gonna be in front of the pond so you can sit down while fishing?
No. They're for like a covered, like, gazebo-ish sort of thing. So here's the wood in the back of my truck.
Okay.
Okay. Started just a bunch of 2x4s. They're 10 feet long.
The
Not
conflict.
too bad, birdie.
You should have seen him like arguing. He's like, they should be $24.
Well, and then I've got a story I'll explain in a second, like what's the conflict, right? Here is me in the process of cutting the wood on the miter saw. Well, it's not me, it's just the miter saw.
Dude, holy sneak peeks right now. Holy shit.
And then here's all the wood that's cut.
Oh, wow.
Self-perfected exclusive.
Okay, I'm gonna try to put it close so you can see. I don't know if it'll
Yeah.
focus.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, there.
We're getting
Wow,
blessed.
you cut
Very
that shit.
cool.
Yeah.
We're
check
getting
this shit out.
blessed right
Cut
now.
it up.
He said, check this shit out.
So I went and then I had to figure out how we're gonna stain it because she wants it kind of a certain color. And I bought an espresso stain and I bought a gun stock, and then we already had something called a honey gold, which was like a self-sealing stain. So
Ooh.
that's these three: honey gold, gun stock, and the dark one is the espresso. And I put them on my workbench that I built I haven't put the top on it yet.
Right there, boom.
Okay.
We
You
good.
can barely see the honey gold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's the lighter one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just stained the top of my workbench before I put the top on it, just to see what they look like. And then she liked that middle one. So you saw that picture of all the wood, right? I'll do it one more time.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that wood. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
And then I stained it. Check this shit out.
So perfected exclusive.
Whoa.
Okay, nice.
Wow.
That looks so good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when you see it up close, like all the wood grain and everything, and that was the best. That was my favorite part so far. I also had to sand all the wood first because
Yep.
it's got to have cushions on it, so you don't want it to be rough edges and so forth. I'm like literally, Katie sent me a YouTube video. She's like, I want this. I was like, okay. So then I have to figure it out. And so for a few days, I wasn't delaying per se of like I don't want to do it. It was just more like trying to process certain points about it within myself until I'm like, okay, I know enough now. I can actually start. Step one was buying all the wood, but I needed to know what kind of wood to get and so forth. What kind of wood am I going to get? And she gives you the plans in her YouTube video, but she said she modified them because the bench she wanted was longer than the one that the plans were for. So I can't just follow the plans. So I have to kind of watch her video and see what she did different and so forth. So the part where the conflict came in was the staining process. I had to figure out what stain I was going to use because she was telling me she wanted something dark, but then when I got the espresso, she was like, no, that's not what I want. I want it light. I'm like, okay. So she was kind of playing with it, right? But then I had those 10-foot boards. Okay. So here's the learning process, right? So in her video, she makes this point. She goes, you cut the 10-foot boards into 96 inches and 24. And it's perfect because you have 96 plus 24 is 10 feet because it adds up to 120, okay, inches. And so I'm like, that doesn't make sense because I know when you cut a board, you cut a little bit off of it because the width of the saw blade. So how is that going to work? Like if you have a 96 and 24 and you just cut it, and then also the ends of it are going to be kind of rough. So I need to cut some of that off. So how's that going to work? Right? I'm like, how did she do that? Doesn't make sense, but that's what she did. She didn't sew every step. So anyways, so now I'm at the process where I've chosen the stain. I'm like, okay, there's no more excuses as to I can't get started because I've sorted out all the unknown parts.
Real
right?
quick, just so I'm not in my mind, like you're talking about the width of the saw blade is taking off enough that it will make an impact.
Well, it's not going to be exactly 24 inches.
Okay, interesting.
It's going to be less. It's going to be whatever the width of the saw blade is, right?
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't think would matter, but the
Yeah.
saw blade on a miter saw is not thin.
Yeah.
It's relative. It's like the width of at least like pencil lead. You know what I mean? At least maybe a little bit more. So
Like an eighth an inch.
something like that. So like when you cut it, you don't cut it right on the line you drew. You cut it so that you cut right on the
Right.
side. So
No, you're
you
right.
actually
Okay.
where you measured is what you wanted, not
Uh-huh.
you're cutting it and you're actually cutting off some of what you measured, right? So
Yeah.
you have to learn that. You wouldn't
So
even know to think of that.
So you had to do it in the same way on every single one. So you knew either the 24 or the other
Well,
boards were slightly off.
That was kind of what I was thinking
Distant.
would happen, right? So what I did first is I did this with 2 boards after I did all the sanding, right? And then I took one of the 10-foot boards and I trimmed off the shitty kind of crunchy part on the end. So it's nice and smooth and flat. I trimmed that off. And then I measured it, and I measured it to exactly 10 feet, and I trimmed off the excess. I'm like, okay, cool. Now I got that 10-foot board. So now and I was like, wait a second. They're not 10 feet. They're slightly more than 10 feet. That's why I was able to cut off the excess little tiny bits on the ends. They're like half of an inch or less more than 120. So, but I didn't click. So I cut them everything. I cut one, and then I cut two of them exactly to 10 feet. And then I was like, see, but because what I did was I drew a picture of all the boards. I drew 11 boards. And then I drew lines of like, okay, this one's going to be 96, 24, all the different, how I'm going to cut those boards into the different pieces I needed.
Mhm.
So I did all that. And then I got my 10-foot board that I cut down to exactly 10. And I'm like, wait. So I cut the 8-foot board, right? And then I'm like, okay, I measured it. I'm like, this is not 24 inches, which is obvious it's not going to be, but it was just like, it confirmed it in reality. It's not. Like, I'm not confused. And I'm like, how is this going to work? And I was like, wait. Okay, let me go back and look at all my boards. All right. The last board had two 27-inch boards and then three 9 1/8 boards. And it left like a bunch, like 66, I don't remember the exact numbers. Whatever the excess was plenty to recover that 24-inch board that I wasn't going to get from the way I cut that first one. I could easily get that from that extra that I was just going to be scrap anyways. So I'm like, okay, it's not a big deal. I can just get it from there. But I have 11 other boards that are 96-24, 96-24. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. I don't have that excess. I only have one board that has the excess. And I was like, wait. I'm just going to trim slightly on the 10-foot board that I haven't cut yet, like the ones that are raw. I'm going to trim off that extra part that's not smooth. And then I'm going to measure 8 feet, cut that, and then take the board that's left, measure 24, and then cut off the extra. So now both ends are all smooth and all the extras cut off. Instead of cutting the extra off first down to 10 feet, which now I can't have a 24-inch board because I have to cut that width of the saw blade. I cut off the end, measure 8, cut it. Now I've got something that's slightly more than 24, and I cut off the excess to make it 24. I'm like,
Nice.
which is like, if you watch anybody who knows how to woodwork, they're like, duh.
Dude, we got really into the weeds there. Like,
but I'm just saying, if you go back and follow it, it makes
Yeah, no,
sense
it
what
makes
I did. But it wasn't, you wouldn't know that in advance necessarily, although it makes perfect sense. You can reason it out. But it wasn't until I was in that situation where, and this guy who I had been watching other videos on how to create stuff, he had explained this many times, but it's like, until I had to face the point in reality.
It wasn't relevant to you.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, yeah, sure. But it never came up yet because I would just cut the boards and I had plenty of extra space and all this stuff. So I was like, and then also what I did, which he had also talked about doing, was I then took the next board, and instead of measuring it, I just took the 8-foot board and made it flush and then drew the line. So now every 8-foot board is going to be exactly the same, even if they're not exactly 8, like Jess was saying.
Yes.
Then I did that, and then I took the 24-inch board that I had and I put that to do the excess. So then I just was like, bam, 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 like a machine.
Nice.
Right. So then that's when I had that stack of boards.
Exactly how I was taught, was to use the previous boards as the
exactly right. Just like anybody who is any way competent in woodworking would be like, well, duh. But it's not obvious to someone who has no experience, no vocabulary, because now it's a part of your vocabulary now. And I learned a lot just from doing this project, which I would not have learned. And I would have always in the back of my mind been like, yeah, but how do I get the boards to match this or that? There would have been this conflict within myself. But because I was willing to go through it and be like, because, okay, normally in the past, not like recently, but just when I was younger, a situation like that, I would have been like, I can't do this. Like, I can't understand how to get it properly. It's not making sense. It's just, I'm going to fuck it up. Like, it's not going to work. And then I would have just, the emotional resistance, I would have just never just done it. Now, it helps that money is not a big deal. So if I have to throw away $100 worth of wood because I fucked it up and go buy some more, not a big deal. You know what I mean? So there's no put it back. I can't fuck it up. Like, I spent my week's paycheck on these boards and I gotta do, you know what I mean? Like, it's not a big deal. Okay. Which also in parenting helps tremendously. Same kind of concept. Cause you're not like, what was something Max did?
Like you can't get your
Seneca-
clothes dirty, for example. That's probably
Well,
like
Seneca has a little pink skateboard that's like a plastic, sort of hard plastic.
it's like a little cruiser.
Like a penny
It's
board?
like a little cruiser, right? Yeah, a little skateboard. It's like a weird flexible plastic. It's not like that.
The wood.
That other, wood.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, it was in the. We have. It's not really I guess it's technically the dining room, kind of. It's adjacent to the kitchen. It's like the big main room of the house, and it has big windows and like screen doors, like floor length, basically windows, and then sliding glass doors. And I was in the kitchen doing something, and then I heard this big, and I was like, it was like a pop, kind of loud, poppy crunch sound. And I was like, so I like kind of looked through the doorway, and I was like, what's going on? And Max was looking at me like not like he was in trouble, because that's not a thing, but kind of like I made a mistake, right? And I was like, and I looked at the door, and it was all shattered all the way up, right? And he was looking down, and he looks at me, and he looks down at the skateboard. And I was like, what happened? I was like, what's going on? And he goes, I made a mistake. And I was like, okay, well, what happened? And he was like, I hit the door with the skateboard. And I looked, and it was like he had been like messing with it, and then it like slid, and like the nose of the skateboard just hit right in the bottom corner of the glass door. Like there's a screen on it, but it like, you know what I mean? Like the screen is flexible. It's flexible. So it hit that corner, and then the whole thing just went, right?
Wow.
So we were like, okay, I understand you made a mistake, Max. That's fine. Let's just back away for a second. I took the skateboard outside, and I said, guys, don't go over there. This thing could fall down and cut you. There could be glass everywhere. So we're like vacuuming up everything. And then I go outside, and I put a tarp down on the outside, and I tape it down and everything, so when it falls out and everything. And but I'm not like, God damn it, I'm gonna have to spend however much it's gonna cost to fix this thing, and you shouldn't be goddamn playing with the skateboard in the house. I'm like,
right, and the time.
Hey, this is a reason why we shouldn't probably play with the skateboard in the house, right, guys? And they were like, yeah. And they were like, okay, cool. Now let's focus on this. Right? We can talk about the skateboard later. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like Max knew he made a mistake, and even if he didn't, I would help him understand it was a mistake. Like, you shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
But
Imagine.
why did I have? And I said, I also made a mistake, guys. I shouldn't have left the skateboard in the house. Shouldn't be in here. Like, why is it even in here? We're not skateboarding in the house. But that was a mistake, right? So, anyways, what's interesting about that is we were like, we were just concerned, like there's going to be glass everywhere. Okay, so now we got to call the place to make sure we get it done quickly and all this stuff, right? Which out here things happen slowly. But then we were looking at it, and we're like, wait, there's a screen on it. Even if the thing falls inward, there's a screen there. Like, you can't touch the glass. There's literally nothing to worry about there. And then they're double paned. It didn't break the outside pane. So there's literally no chance it's going to go on the outside. So the initial things we were even concerned about, which we could have been like, someone's going to get cut by, which we didn't do, but we could have done that. It would have actually stupid to do that, because literally there's things holding that glass in anyways, and the outside one's fine. So it's not a big rush. It's not like we're leaking air conditioning out constantly. It's not a big deal. Right. But because we're not like stretched, it's like, it's okay, Max, you made a mistake. Let's all of us agree. Let's not have skateboards in the house, or let's also not hit things on the window. Like, you know, so for a few days.
There's two huge points that you reference in there. One is why it's so key to have a business and have cash flow, you know, and to set up that system. Because then you're like, because I could see if that were to happen to the quote unquote average person, and be like, oh, I'm going to have to spend 3 hours doing this. You know, I need to, you know, get the money for the thing, and that's going to take out of food money or whatever. So that's key right there. And then also on the point about you making the bench and going through that process of like learning what to even do, where it's so obvious to someone who does woodworking. They're like, yeah, you would just cut the boards in that way. Well, that's, you know, for anyone who doesn't see it, because I know we all see it, it's like, that's the same thing for doing this process and learning how to work through your emotions and all that
and
stuff.
Building a business.
Yeah.
No, Mitch, I'm really glad you're talking about this. Go more specifically into how that applies.
Guys, I just want to be really clear real quick. I wasn't trying to sell anybody by telling that story. I was just telling a story. There was no trying to teach a lesson or sell anything.
Too late. I was sold on making a bench out of wood.
Okay, I wasn't trying to sell you on that.
Okay. So,
Hey, look, when you guys come down here, if you want to make a bench,
yeah, that does sound cool. Now that
you
you
can just
know,
put all the pieces together. You could take it back in your truck and screw it together at home.
see, this is the benefit of a network, because now we know. Because like, yes, I could sit down and watch a YouTube video and all that. That's cool, but to then have Cameron there as well to explain like in person.
Imagine just coming down for the week as like a vacation type thing, and then we just like make a bench while you're down. You know what I mean? Or a table or whatever the fuck you want.
That's why we got to drive our new truck down there so we can fit it in the bed.
Right. But I mean, think about it. You order something from IKEA, isn't it? They just already put everything together and you just have to screw it together.
Yeah, and they're confusing as manuals. But hey,
confusing as shit, and you don't. Yeah, and
I've never assembled something from IKEA since I've had TechnoTutor, so I'm sure I could figure it out now. But so this is the point here is it's obvious to us, for example, how to build a business, how to go face our fears, how to walk through conflict, how to sort stuff out in reality, and then get the result that we're going after, which is fundamentally empowering people, empowering ourselves so we can take more responsibility, and thus through that build business, create influence, build the systems, and then eventually get into politics and change the money system, while educating the world throughout that whole thing. Like, that's obvious to us. But for someone where maybe this is the first podcast you're listening to, or you've only listened to a few or whatever,
50.
Yeah, it's like when we just talk about, for example, doing the process of, like Drake's saying at the beginning, he had this image in his mind of, I don't want to push people because I have to then face stuff inside myself. Now for us now, it's like, well, obviously that's just a clear indicator you're feeling resistance. Good. Use that as a guide to what you need to actually work on. Don't give yourself the bullshit, oh, I shouldn't feel resistance and just feel good all the time. It's like, that's just being a loser. So what you need to do, which again, this is obvious to us, but it might not be for the average person, is sit down, open your TechnoTutor, put in the words, put in the back chat, all the stuff in your mind into your TechnoTutor, then use it to put in how you would like it to go. And then where necessary, do the self-forgiveness, either speaking it out loud or writing it. And you're going to realize these main points that you're holding on to, likely from memories in childhood. And that's what we have to dismantle. And what's so cool is that when you do that, much like what happened to Drake, then a month later, a week, whatever, in the future, he was confronted with that in real physical reality, where for Drake, he did have to bring up this conflicting, he directed the point where there was conflict. But now that guy at least got a dose of a chance to see his self-honesty of like, hey, I want all these different things and I'm doing this now. And, it was obvious that the guy wasn't going to actually achieve his dreams unless he changed. But thankfully, Drake had walked through that himself and then in real reality, face that point. And that's the process. There's no magical thing where if you vibrate or you listen to binaural beats or whatever the fuck you're trying to do, that's not doing anything for you. In fact, it's keeping you distracted. And so in reality, the real way to change is you identify throughout your day and make note of what is the shit that's coming up? Where do I need to be based in principle? And then where am I now? Where am I coming short? And then identify the steps you got to take to do that. And then you use the tools. And that's this constant evolution of the self-perfection process.
And you're never going to understand, like, I think this is probably the most important thing. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to understand how to use the tools the best, or how to build a business, or how to be successful unless you start doing it. And because Mitchell was mentioning, that's the power of a network, because we could watch all these YouTube videos and all this stuff, or we could just like have Cameron there. Like, for example, if we went to their place and he showed us how to cut wood, because Cameron was watching the stuff, but you don't know what points are minute, but it'll be the reason that you're not successful in building a bench. It's the same thing. Like this process.
If I had gone through and cut all those boards to 10 feet,
Be fucked.
I would have been fucked. I mean, in the context of now I got to go buy more wood.
Right.
And what the part I didn't emphasize was that I sanded all those boards first. That took kind of like all day, actually.
Ooh,
I
and then
wasn't
you have
expecting
that whole sunk cost bias comes in of like, well, I already spent all this time. Like I gotta.
I'm like, I'll just make it anyways.
I'll just make it
and would have
work.
been
Right.
like
Exactly.
but the problem was I couldn't do that because Katie's ordering the cushions.
Oh, that's exactly.
So I'm like, I have to make it the correct lengths. So normally, if you were just building a bench to sit on, it would fine. Use 23-inch board like for those parts. It's all just going to be slightly different. Fine. But this is not that case. She's ordering the cushions. It's got to be 48.
Dude, I'm so stoked to sit on this bench.
Well, what it is like outside the house, there's like this concrete slab that has these 4 posts. It's pretty big. I mean, it's like as big as the room I'm sitting in. Yeah, about as big as this room. And then it has a roof on it, which is kind of like got like a dark orange, kind of like almost like a metally kind of roof. And then it's got like black trim on everything.
Sounds really nice.
And it's just basically empty. And you could put like a dining table there or just, so we've been kind of debating, what do we want to put there? And she decided she wants to put 2 really long benches and then another like seat and then like kind of like a coffee table in the middle. And like when you guys are here, we could be sitting out there drinking coffee, hanging out.
Stop. You're doing it again.
Was I doing it?
This image in my mind where I want to go and I want to enjoy myself. Stop. Okay?
I was doing it.
That's what I'm talking about.
I was doing it.
I'm
Guilty.
already sold on sitting on the bench.
Too late.
But anyways,
Cameron, you're off the podcast.
that was the whole point of it.
We're all off the podcast. It's over.
I'm kicking myself off. But yeah, that was the point. So we're gonna have those benches there, and then like in front of that little gazebo, there's like a little circular fire pit sort of thing where we like to burn shit.
Sounds awesome.
So we can sit out there talking, like, and then there's also our back patio, which has a dining table, and we're gonna have some chairs around a little chimenea, those little smokestack things where
You
you
just
can
made that
burn
word
wood
up.
into it.
Yeah, right.
What the hell?
That's what Katie calls it. It's like a Mexican sort of like.
No,
little
you made that up
smokestack.
on the spot.
So
It's like a chimney, but it's
This
like.
is-
I don't like the word either, guys.
This is such an important point because I can still remember this like 2 years ago before I had Technotutor and when I was still just a complete loser. It was going through so many experiences like Cameron had gone through there, where you have to build something and create something, and then you don't actually complete it. It's like you try, you invest in it, and then something happens and you give up. And that experience freaking haunts you. And it's like, maybe you do it. Who knows how many times? Maybe it's a couple times a year, maybe it's once a week, whatever, where you have this thing where you're like, hey, I'm trying to build it. It could be a business, right? We all joined some MLM or some shit in the past, and you tried to do it for a couple weeks and then it fell off, right? But I'm sure, I know there are many people listening to this podcast that have yet to have successfully actually built the thing. So you haven't actually gone through and built that bench, or maybe you've had 1 or 2 times in your life where you've actually done the thing and it worked. And that, because like,
But they're not able to apply it outside of that context.
yeah, because now I've done a ton of shit since I've had Technotutor. Now I just know, oh, I can actually do this, like building the e-commerce company and scaling that. And then I'm like, okay, now I built the thing. Now I realize that's not best to do, but I actually did the thing and I got the result. Or like get a relationship. Hey, bam, that's what we have. I mean, it's still growing, right? Or like successfully train a dog in a certain way or build a local team and support the team to grow and get the result. Like, so now I just know, okay, cool. I can do that. But I can very clearly still remember all those times where I spent years just spinning and not actually completing it. And the main thing that you're missing is just one is that willpower to actually persist and succeed. And you might be trying to persist and succeed in stupid things. So you have to start with principle. Because if you're like, oh, I'm going to be so successful at like a supplement company, it's like supplements likely aren't doing shit. I mean, there's a specific time and place for a supplement, but if you're just trying to build a supplement
But
company.
if everybody had proper nutrition as a staple,
Exactly.
you wouldn't need
Exactly.
supplements.
Exactly. And so that's why Technotutor is so key, is because that's actually the first point, is that equal education. And through that equal education in the network, that's how we can influence systems such as food, nutrition, water, healthcare, stuff like that. But yeah, that's just such a key point. And yeah, why people get messed up with that and they haven't had those series of successes is because you aren't using TechnoTutor with self-honesty and then applying the self-forgiveness necessary and then just finishing the thing.
Just
Like
doing
actually
it.
just get the result.
So,
And then you have these series of successes.
to answer your question from earlier of like why it would be painful to experience this conflict, from like revisiting, that memory, it wasn't actually painful to change that.
Right.
Like once I knew what it was, once I knew why I was doing this, then it was like, oh, well, just do this.
Did you guys see that post that
Whoa, what's going on over there? You
That
coughing?
Delta.
That Delta?
It's the sawdust.
bro?
It's the
Delta.
salt. It's the
Come
sawdust.
on, Epsilon.
You literally just shared the story. It's the sawdust. Calm
you got
down.
that pulp in your lungs.
Did y'all saw that post? I can't remember if it was Asif's post. I think it was Mitch's. I can't remember which. About maybe it was Asif's. About something about change. Something about changing. I can't. Oh no! It was the fucking.
That's like all of my posts.
Maybe it was the parking spot post.
Ooh, I'm already triggered.
I'm
already.
not sure if it was that one, but did you do another one that was about changing or something? Or
What happened?
it was some guy commented on there like, don't. I can't remember the exact words, but like, don't downplay people who have made a small change. Even a small change can be really important. And like, change is painful. Change is painful. And I said, change is not painful. Resistance to change is painful.
Yeah.
That was another post.
I brought it up because that's exactly what Drake was just saying. It's like the change itself. And Asia texted me the other day.
Oh, you know what
She
it was?
said-
It was when I said if the reason why you have problems in your relationship is because you don't know how to change, or something like that. And then somebody commented like, change is painful, like something.
Asia texted me yesterday. She said, where does the programming come from of waiting till things get really bad before one changes? And I said, fear. And she said, fear of what? And I was like, well, you tell me. I'm not going to tell you the answer to that. So you have to look at it, right? But isn't that the point? It's like fear of pain.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to change it because I don't want to feel that pain of changing it. And then so what happens is you wait until it's so bad that it's so painful that what happens
to do it.
that you're like, okay, I'm going to change it because I don't like this pain.
Yeah.
If you had just changed it, wouldn't have
When the
had to feel
pain was like this
pain.
much.
So the
Right,
crazy
maybe
of that
there would be
is
something, but it wouldn't be what it is when you're being forced to change. Yeah, that kind of change is painful, but it's not the change that was painful. It was your resistance and the
Right.
buildup of the consequence. Like, change is painful. I changed my clothes this morning. I wasn't in agony.
Ah!
But if I didn't change my clothes and they became fused to my fucking body, then that change would be painful.
Ah!
Ah!
That was
That
awesome.
happened.
it's
Ah!
but if you look at it from the standpoint of there's something in your life that isn't necessarily directly causing consequence to you personally while you're accepting it, right? And
This is
then
a tough one for people.
Do you have an example of this? Just to make it
I have a
obvious.
great example. Christianity, fucking people just jerking off to Jesus all the fucking time.
Hey, we're supposed to be accepting of all faiths.
Okay. Anyways, and then
Except, how
I
about
don't
this?
think you're supposed
We
to
don't
jerk
accept-
off to him.
We
I
don't
think
accept
he
any
watches
faiths.
you when you do it. You know?
What?
Yeah.
I'm talking about jerking off.
okay. Let me finish my point. So
Okay.
your whole life, right? You've accepted that if Jesus died on the cross for me, then I am going to go to heaven, and I'm going to believe that. And even if you've done like minute things within your local community or even to these mission trips or whatever, and I'm not going to go into the consequence of those things themselves, but like in your understanding, you're like, I've done good. And in this life, and I'm going to get to go to heaven in the afterlife, right? You don't directly see how that's causing consequences in the rest of the world, or, you know, what that belief is actually limiting you to. And so your whole life, you just continue to believe this thing. And to try and go and discuss that point with that person and help them understand, which I understand they probably don't have the processing ability in the first place, but even say they did, say they had been using Techno Tutor for a while, and then you discuss this point with them, and for them to see that they have to change, they have to be able to consider more than just themselves, because if they're only considering themselves, it doesn't matter. Like, they're just going to keep doing the same fucking thing. They're going to keep jerking off to Jesus and going on their little mission trips and calling it good.
See, but look, there's not one single person who has been using Techno Tutor consistently who is still going to do that. You know what I mean? And because like you made that point of like, even if they were using it, they would eventually transcend that point. Like, just that's naturally, because they're going to see through it.
When people come against that point through their process of using Techno Tutor, because their awareness is growing, right? It's like me and Cameron were talking yesterday. He's just making this point of like, it's very simple. Whenever you're facing conflict, it's because you don't understand something. Like, if you just understand it and push through, like if you have the vocabulary for it and you don't have some emotional point within a word based off some memory, you can just let go of that, right? Through the process. It's like, once you this makes sense about why it'd be best for me in every way, and best for me equals best for all. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to do it. The reason why people don't do something is because they don't understand. So develop the understanding. Done.
The heaven point is a perfect example, because it's like, okay, look, you got to stop believing all that shit, because it's creating consequences, like Jess was saying, that you don't even see, which you need to see them. But the point is, there are consequences. So stop. And the person's like, but if I don't believe in it, I won't go to heaven. I'm like, okay, yes. However, let's create heaven here on earth. No, you can't do that. Heaven's somewhere else. Like, I got to believe so I can get there. No. What are all the things you want about heaven? Well, this. Okay, let's just create that here. There's no reason why we couldn't if we solve this, and this thing that's preventing that from happening.
Then they have to face.
Yeah, but I got to believe because da.
Yeah, because when I die, then, you know, I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, you guys know about Venn diagrams. You guys know about Venn diagrams, right? Those overlapping circles, right? To represent the union, which is like the overlap between groups, right? So here's the circle of people who believe that they're just going to go to heaven, and there's a heaven, and you just get there somehow, and when you die, and just because you're good or you believe in Jesus, right? Here's the Venn diagram here's the circle that represents the group of people who can't process the consequences of that, of what that creates in the world, what it allows. Ready? It's a perfect fucking circle. Meaning you can't process the consequences because you're so dumb. That's why you believe that otherwise, how could you possibly even believe that there's a fucking heaven and a benevolent God who's going to reward you because he's to a fucking human sacrifice? Like, because this guy who was also the same God that's going to give you heaven, who could have just snapped his fingers and done it, but no, Jesus had to die so you could have appreciate it or something, even though you don't, because you're not willing to help you're not willing to sacrifice yourself to help people.
Listen to me, dude. I'm gonna kill my son so that you listen to me. I'm gonna do it and kill him.
It's so crazy.
My mom used to do that. Like, when I would act up, she would fucking lock herself in the bathroom and tell me she was gonna take pills.
The thing is, people with low vocabulary, people who can't process this point, it feels good to believe. Mm-hmm. It is something.
Oh yeah, no, they feel like they're a better person than you.
Oh yeah, because I still, if I ever am not listening to a podcast for some reason, I just want to like listen to music or something, and I put on the radio, and I'm clicking through the radio channels, and then all of a sudden the Christian channel comes on. 95% of the fucking time I know every word to the song. Like, I literally was brainwashed with that growing up. Like, it makes you feel good. And then sometimes I catch myself leaving it on that channel for 2 seconds and singing along, and then I'm like, the fuck? And then I change it because I'm like, this literally was programmed into me from such a young age that it's just like this feel good now because somebody else took responsibility, so you don't have to.
It's always like, you are the greatest, you are the best, Jesus, and I'm just so little because I can't do anything.
Like, you're programming children and people to literally be slaves.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. To have a lord over them. It's like,
now, so
like, imagine the slave owner, like, on the plantation blasting rap music to all the slaves, and they're like dancing in the field, like boom, boom, and they're like, the master is the greatest. We praise the master. We work for him. We do everything for him in his name. And you're like,
so I was mentioning this point of like, you don't understand that how that's affecting you. When it comes to the point of change, you're going to subconsciously be like, it's in the hands of God. It's in the hands of the universe or whatever. Yeah. Technotutor, when people use it over time, their awareness grows, but when they face that point of change and they're not willing to be self-honest about what they have to let go of, this is what I did. They stopped using the tool.
You stop using Technotutor. It's like, for that point that you needed to integrate to upgrade your understanding, you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that.
and there's that fear of almost like, wait, if I let go of this, that means like I'm going against all of this programming of like I remember the first time I ever heard the phrase of like, we're all God. We're all gods. Like, we're all equal to God. Uh-huh. I was like,
oh, you can't say that.
I'm gonna go to hell if I say that.
No, dude, the master, the God, lives in the big house. We don't go in there.
Yep,
we don't go in there.
I'm gonna punish you.
Yeah,
dude. That point that you just brought up of like realizing if I let go of this, like a lot of times what would come up for me is if I let go of this, that means this entire time I've just been wasting my time. Like I've been keeping myself here.
It can't be that easy to change, because if it was that easy to change, I would have.
Yes, that's why self-forgiveness. And consider this, perhaps that moment of you being able to then transcend that, you can now relate to so many people who also went through that bullshit. So maybe that's actually your point, is you went through it to now, to then actually change. So then you can find all the other brainwashed people that are realizing, wait, this world is hell on earth for basically everyone.
Yeah. You're the one holding that pattern in place. Like, you are the Jesus on the cross for that point.
Right.
Just sacrifice it. Let it go.
Yeah.
Forgive. Like,
and then let's
be the fucking thing that you're worshiping.
Instead of gambling.
Also, for those who are like, oh, but what that point Asif was bringing up, you get to that point, you stop using it. But if it works, how come you didn't work, right? But that's like when you go to the gym, right? You get to that next level and you're like, okay, now I got to lift this next level. It always was working the whole time. But if you're like, I don't want to do that next level, and you stop going to the gym, or you just stop, you're not like, I'm not going to push those weights, you're not going to get to that point.
You know what it's like?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it still works.
Here's a good example.
You're not doing it at that level.
I would love to see someone who's just like, yeah, the gym doesn't work for me. Like,
I tried it didn't work for me.
Okay, and if Jesus is this all perfect godlike being, well, then just ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Would he just give up, or would he keep going? Right?
Well, but I can't be perfect like Jesus.
Exactly. You're not allowed to say.
So what's the point of saying, what would Jesus do?
Right? That's so true.
Why even like, what are you just torturing yourself? What would Jesus do? Probably something I can't do.
What would Jesus do? Okay, be patient with my wife, but I can't be equal to Jesus, so I got to be a cunt. Okay, I got it. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. But
I have to be not perfect. So it's like those rugs where they put the imperfection in it.
The craziest one is when people say Jesus gave parents the authority over the children, which justifies them beating them. You can spank your children, you can hit them, you can punish them in ways and not have to explain yourself because Jesus gave you the authority.
Also, Jesus said, and then the man, and then the woman, and then the woman over the children. So if people think that parents can hit their kids because of Jesus, I would say then the guy can spank his wife.
That's what they're accepting, huh?
When she gets naughty.
So yeah,
if you're not spanking your wife,
can I bring a point in real
that's why shit happens in your life, because Jesus is spanking you. That makes so much more sense.
Jesus giving you some spank. I want to bring a point in. Okay, this is the Bible hour. For those of you, if you would get out your Bibles, please.
Oh, sick.
And turn to Matthew chapter 10. All right. This is, I want to read a little bit to you guys, okay? Not a lot, but a lot. This one's called Jesus Sends Out the 12. Okay. All right. So,
Bring them out. Bring them out.
Matthew. Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out impure spirits and to heal every disease and sickness. Okay.
Oh, sick, dude.
Isn't that like Bernard taught everybody about destiny, techno tutor, etc., and said, now go take these tools and go support people to drive out their disease and their sickness.
Yep.
Support them to take that self-responsibility to remove it from themselves, which is ego, right?
The demons.
So then they list who they are. And let me get to this part. I mean, there's like a bunch. You can just go read it yourself, but I like this part. I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and be flogged in the synagogues. When they arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you'll be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. In other words, if you are speaking from principles, you don't need to fucking plan out what you're going to say. Just stick to your principles. You don't need to plan ahead. Whatever anyone says, go back to your principles within yourself and look at what is best. He's like, how do I figure out all the consequences of, just go back to your principles and start working it out. Okay, there's a specific point though. Okay, here we go. Some spicy stuff. Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven. If you fucking turn your back on life, good luck.
See, what's so funny is that someone with low vocabulary will say, you guys are not down with Jesus, you're going to be disowned. But in actuality, the real message of Jesus is the message of life, equality.
Yeah, this was also translated through multiple translations by people who wanted slaves.
Yes, that is the key point right there. The Bible that you're reading and that you've been brainwashed with has been manipulated by humans where their starting point is just ego and perpetuating the slave system. Whereas what we're saying is we are here based in principle, what's best for all, which is what Jesus was actually saying, was common sense. Same message that Bernard has, right? Same message that we have. So that's the key point right there. You want to just read that again?
The part where people think that it means just believe in Jesus and you'll be saved, that's a misunderstanding of what he was saying.
Yeah.
Because he never said, when I die on the cross, just worship that. Because he never even talked about it until he died, until it happened. I know my Bible scholars are going to be like, no, he predicted it by blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Okay, so it says, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven.
Obviously, if you're considering all life, you're going to create heaven on earth. And if you don't, you're not going to create heaven on earth. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like obvious shit. Okay, but here's
so
the part
obvious.
here's this part I want to specifically bring up, right? Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword.
Oh, shit.
I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of the little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. So if you create a world that is best, where every child has water, you will get heaven.
Yeah, but it's also
If you
like
turn your back on them. Remember, the children are innocent. They are equal to Jesus. So if you turn your backs on them because you want to get heaven, you see what I mean? It's just about you. All you care about is yourself. You don't care about anything else. You don't even understand what life is. You're not honoring the principle of life in everything equally. And that's what's important. That's where the equality is at.
and it's funny because within that, people distort that, and it's the opposite, where they're like, you know, you have to believe in the Bible, you know, your family is important, they're your blood, and you have all these associations and feelings and memories to them and all these points. But then if you look at it, it's actually, no, you're not any more important than anybody else just because you're my family. And we have to value life here on earth equally to actually create the heaven on earth, because that's literally what it takes. But if you accept and allow that your family is more important, or your loved ones are more important than everything else on earth or life, you know, you're accepting and allowing abuse. And that's the reason why we don't have heaven on earth, is because we're valuing something over all other life when we're all equal.
Did Jesus say value your family more than others? No.
The conflict that comes in is people are so low vocabulary. They are struggling for survival, and all they can do is put food on the table for their family. And they're thinking, oh, now you just want me to like go and work all day and give food to like other people's families? I don't think so. No, I got to take care of my family. Right. It's like, they can't, because they're not processing the point. They can't see, no, we're creating a system.
And that's also the problem.
That you have to give permission to, that would allow everyone to be taken care of. And that would be allowing you to take care of other people's families without you. It's not about survival. What are you going to say, Drake?
That's also the problem, is that like what Jess was talking about before with like people going on like missions trips and things like that. You spend like a sliver of time with these people and you think that's going to make any kind of difference at all. It's not. Like what you would have to do in order for, like, if you're just spending time with just this little small village or whatever, you would have to spend all this time like growing up the village, educating them one by one. You don't even do that with your own fucking kids, you know?
When we go to Lowe's, right, to guy stuff, a lot of times we take the kids with us.
Is that your mission trip when you go to Lowe's?
And they have, I'm on a mission. They have these little packages. They're like little kits of like a little car made of wood that you can like nail together, and like you make something out of it, and it's all branded with Lowe's, right? And it's like they give it to the kids for free, right? And I explained to Max like why it's branded, he's like, why does it say Lowe's on it? And I was explaining to him what they're doing is they're impulsing the children so that when they become adults, they'll automatically think about Lowe's whenever they want something. So they're giving you the toy because they know your parents will want to give it to you as a reward for being good at this. I explain that to him, right? But that's literally what mission trips are. It's like the church comes in and they give a little toy, like they build a house for the poor people, and they give in like a little toy to them so that they'll think, Jesus did this for me. It's because these people have Jesus that they helped us. That's all it is. It's just Lowe's coming in there, or McDonald's giving you the toy with the Happy Meal. That's all it fucking is. It doesn't change the system because it doesn't stop there being poor people.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is the elite care more about ending poverty than anybody else.
They care about it because they don't want to.
No, it's just their solution is kill all the poor people.
Oh my God.
Kill 80% of them.
But now they're at the point where their automation's coming in, so they're like, all right, we definitely don't need you anymore.
That's because
robots don't talk back.
That's because they're not profiting off of the extra poor. They're only profiting on the mid, somewhat of the lower class who actually has the money to give to them.
Right. That's actually a good point. Like they're going to have a middle class slaves now who just run the robots.
Now?
Kill off any
slave before?
No, but what I'm saying is like they're going to get rid of the real poor and then just have middle class slaves only who are at a vocabulary level enough to maintain the robots and the automation.
Yeah.
And they're already training everybody. Look, you don't want to own anything. Come on. we'll take care of all your stuff. You just work on our robots and everything, and we'll just give you the crumbs.
Yeah, just look up the Forbes article from World Economic Forum. Welcome to 2030, where you own nothing and you're happier than ever or whatever. It's like
You'll never be happier. I'm gonna look it up.
A couple of the TV shows that we've been watching that are based in the future have 3D printing food for the population, where they have like fat cartridges, and it's literally just 3D printed food for people. But the upper class who have like a ton of money, like the elite, can pay to have real food. Everyone else has to have 3D printed food. And that's happening right in front of our eyes, you guys.
Guys,
I was growing meat and shit. Like, hello.
I was talking to this guy who lives here in town, who we owns a bunch of property here. I've told you guys about this already. A guy who's very well connected with lots of very important people. And we were having this conversation. He was saying, he was like, he's creating a farm that would be able to feed this entire town as a model to be able to have real food, like real meat, like cattle, things like that, chickens, real vegetables, hydroponic, all that stuff that can feed an entire small town. He said, because in these small towns, food, the way people are used to it, is going to become a luxury.
Wow.
Meaning
the way he said that, I'm like, damn, a basic need being a luxury. That's interesting. He was like, yeah. He's like, that's what's coming. And this is not some crazy guy. This is like a guy who makes shit happen.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And it's because why exactly? Is it because, well, a multitude of factors. One, soil quality going down. People don't know how to farm. So people don't know how to get and grow nutritious food themselves. But what is it also more predictive of, like a collapse in the system?
Oh, well, but also the elite are buying up everything to be able to give everybody grasshopper burgers, just like Jake just was talking about.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, the food you're used to, like real food, is going to become a luxury. You're just going to get the cricket burgers and the cricket snacks.
And that's what,
so he's looking at how can we make it so that you can have a sustainable point that a one farm can provide for an entire town of people, like during the rural areas.
You guys remember in the Matrix when what's his face? He wanted to go back into the Matrix.
Cypher.
And he's
Cypher.
Yeah, and he's making the deal with the guy at like the restaurant, and he's like eating the holographic steak. And he's like, even though it's holographic, I'm just so glad to be like back in the Matrix. It's like the exact same thing. It's not real food, right? But it's just like, thank you for providing for it.
By the way, welcome to 2030. I own nothing. This is the Forbes article. Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better.
Like,
it doesn't say life is the best it could possibly be.
Yeah.
It's just life hasn't been better. Life has never been better than this. It's like for the person who that article is targeting, when was your life ever good?
Yeah, exactly.
If it was, you wouldn't be pursuing happiness. It's like the wording of it is fascinating. It doesn't say in life is perfect or best. It says in life has never been better. Yeah, okay.
So here's the thing, like to kind of start looping everything. We don't plan what we're going to say. We know our principles. We know what we're here to communicate, and we just trust the spirit of the Father. Right? We just trust our own breath and our what's integrated in us physically to come through.
It's not even trust, but it's like
I know
doubt. I just don't doubt.
Right, but trust.
It's like I don't trust myself. I just don't doubt myself. You see the difference?
Right, that's fair.
I'm not like, I know, I believe in my. It's like I'm just gonna go there and I'm not participating in doubt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Which is like a negative. Which
and
is like
what comes natural
don't
is
participate
expression.
in anything. Just go do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're going to express about it. Here's the thing, though. You don't just develop the ability just by studying speaking. And this is the thing I wanted to say earlier is like, there's no way in fuck that you're going to learn to, okay, for example, I bring up this example, which is the perfect example. If you tried to teach a child how to walk by explaining it to them, how would that go? Somebody explain to me how to walk right now.
So you lift up your left leg, right? Bend it at the knee, 45-degree angle. Okay. You want to put all your weight on your right leg and swing that left leg forward.
Okay, I'm doing it right now.
He's doing it. He's walking. Look at him go.
So it's like,
what should I be sitting down or standing up? You didn't tell me.
Oh,
so it's like
stand up.
if you consider it, right? It's like, okay, you're going to first, pull yourself off of the ground because you have to consider where the person's at. You got to climb up to the chair. We're going to assume that you already know how to do that, and then off of that, you're going to move. You're going to kind of go out on a limb here, and then you're going to stabilize it by curling your toes just a little tiny bit on each of your feet. Then you're going to activate your gluteus maximus and your quadricep on your left leg, and then activate your shoulder muscles and shoulder blade on your right arm, and you're going to start swinging that forward. But as you do that, you want to make sure that you're counterbalancing, right? But you're going to do it with about 75 to 80 joules of energy. Oh, wait, you don't know what a joule? It's like there's so many little things that you would absolutely miss if you tried to explain to a child how to walk, because it came naturally to you. You have this
And
natural
you don't
learning.
think about any of that.
Exactly.
And you never
exactly.
thought about any of it.
But hear me out, right? It's
I
like,
know. Yeah.
that's the exact same thing as trying to learn how to be successful through listening to somebody explain it to you.
Also, there's this tough point within there of like listening to somebody who is explaining it the best that they can and who has lived it or whatever, and then you think you got it just from hearing them.
Uh-huh.
You know?
And you also think as long as you just want it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even though you're not even doing anything that they're telling you.
Right.
I had somebody text me the other day. You guys don't know who it is, probably.
Why do they have your number?
Well, he would have it. Well, he's actually a Facebook Messenger, but
Okay, yeah.
he like randomly texts me out of nowhere, and he goes, KT made billions in casinos, right? First of all, no, but also, so what? What is your point?
So it's like
the mentality of that person, who I know is just sitting at home jerking off, doing nothing, but then also wants to argue with us.
I don't know what you're talking about.
here's the cool thing about your body. It's like, so the point I want to clarify is there's no way that you can learn something that's really important beyond just some like informational point of like whatever the case may be. But in terms of actually practically having a great relationship, being able to be patient with your partner, or how to face conflict, or like building a business, or being able to communicate effectively. You can study all you want. That's going to be the very, very small part. It's actually the smallest part. The thing that matters most is your application. The way you actually learn to walk is that as a baby, not a baby, a toddler, unconsciously, you're like, okay, I have these physical body parts. I have these legs, I have these arms, all that stuff. And I'm watching other people use it. So I'm just going to replicate. My body's going to change and replicate their usage. And I'm going to be able to use it that way.
But it's not even conscious.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you're trying to say this, but it's like hard to explain it without making it seem like.
Exactly. You're not thinking. You're not, none of that's happening, right?
It's like your body is just
taking action,
absorbing that pattern and trying to imitate it. That's all that's happening.
So here's the thing, right? This is why they say the number one way to be successful, right? If Aristotle Onassis, the guy who bought up all the ships and became the richest man in the world, if he lost it all, what would he do to become successful again? He would surround himself with successful people. But that only works if you have an open natural learning ability. So my point in saying that is, okay, you could be surrounded with all the successful people. You could be listening to the successful people talk. But if you aren't, and bear with me, okay? If you're not like, okay, I have the legs, I have the arms, and that person is using their legs and their arms, therefore I'm going to replicate that. My body is just going to download that and replicate it. In the context of something that's more abstract, such as building a business, making money, it's not just like a physical thing that you do, even though it is, right?
How many people who are 30 years old who never learned to walk can learn to walk just by watching somebody else do it?
No.
Right.
Zero.
No.
None.
I'm not talking about somebody who got in a car accident and is just rebuilding their muscle or something like that. I'm saying like they literally didn't. So the major difference is we're talking about a child who's 2 years old or 1 year old or whatever in their natural learning ability phase, where their body is still very much just absorbing patterns automatically without any thinking.
A physical representation of their body is absorbing patterns. Is like your bones aren't fully formed yet. The structure of your bones
right
doesn't even really
Right,
take
there's all
root.
these things that are not set in place yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that by the time they are set in place, your body is already formed a certain way and it's not going to allow new information in.
Right.
in the context of doing something abstract, such as having a great relationship or building a business, what are the legs? It's your vocabulary. And what I mean by that is you have to have the physically integrated parts for you to be like, oh, that person is using those physically integrated parts. So I'm just going to replicate that. But the point is, if you don't have the words physically integrated inside of you, there's no unconscious recognition of, oh, I'm just going to use my words within me and act based off those words the same way that that successful person is. And my point in saying that is, in terms of being a child, learning to walk from the people around them, it's because physically integrated is like, I have the same physical structures as that person. So I'm going to download off of them how to use those physical structures. If you don't have words physically integrated inside of you, you will never understand how a business person is building their business. You will never understand how to sell. You'll never understand how to communicate with people. You'll never understand how to invest your money, all of that stuff. You're just going to try to do it out of a point of memory. You're going to try to do it as a point of a faulty image in your mind of what's actually happening. Because the reality is, if you really listen to KT, for example, right? He's driving 5 hours to present to 2 people to show them their business. He's negative, 40K in his business. And he's like, oh, terrific. I'm glad you told me now. And then he's going to set up a seminar and make 40K in a day. It's like, you're not willing to take on that level of responsibility. You're not processing that point about what he's willing to do. But what he's actually doing is he's following a set of principles. He's trying to explain to you how it all results, how it all looks, right? And so that you can integrate the surface level stuff. But it's just like saying, okay,
because
how did I learn to walk? How did I learn to walk? Okay, what I did was I put my left foot in front of my right foot. Okay, so guys, everybody do that. Okay, and then put your right foot in front of your left foot. You're missing so many things that it's almost ridiculous to believe that you can teach a child to walk like that. It's ridiculous to believe that a successful person can communicate to you every single thing you need in order to be successful.
They're thinking that by being in that environment around people who are successful and through being there a lot, some kind of spaced repetition is going to imprint on the person in the same way that it worked as a child where you were just basically being imprinted on. The reason why it doesn't work in that context is because, and you were explaining this, is what you were doing as a child, you already had all the prerequisite parts.
Yes.
So it was just a matter of absorbing the pattern. And you were in that state where everything was sort of open still. As an adult, that openness has gone down, first of all.
Why?
Because
Why does that
you
happen?
haven't kept it open.
Yeah. Why does that happen?
Well, a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
Physiologically, but also in a systematic sense, also, we don't even attempt to keep it open because our whole education system is based on memorization. Because for the same reason that trying to learn about success is based on memorization, as you pointed out, because the idea is, well, what you
You're
said was
trying to
brilliant.
replicate the way that you're trying to replicate learning about success the same way you learn things in school, knowing that school programmed you for slavery.
Well, hold on. Here's the key point. Like, because the way you said about your vocabulary is your legs, this is the key point people need to understand. A successful person in business, it's not really about their physical parts. That's not what it is they're utilizing per se. It's about the knowledge that they have based on the vocabulary they have, based on the words. They have more words about something and definitions that are correct in alignment with the system. So if you don't have those parts physically in your body in the same sense that you have, like, I'm not trying to be funny. If a baby was born without arms and legs and they try to imitate other people walking, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
They're going to have to find out another way to walk
Mhm.
or move.
They would
Because
have
you know,
to.
you have those examples where they like are able to crawl or whatever they do, but they're not going to be able to do what you're doing because they don't have those parts. So if you don't have within you the words physically as like physical structures, like a computer, like a hard drive within you that the guru or the person you're looking at has, you're not going to be able to replicate what they're doing. All you can do is try to mimic as best you can and try to memorize. Well, they're saying it's this, and this. I know the 4 key principles of this, and I know this, and I can go into all the details and explain this and explain that and explain that. But it's not just happening because you can, for example, could you learn what you just described, all the physiological processes of how to walk? Could you explain all that? Somebody could learn all that and explain it, and they could be like, okay, so you lift your leg and then this muscle activates and da-da-da, but they still can't walk because in the key time, they didn't have the proper patterns to mimic, or they didn't have legs. So, and people think because I am learning the information and memorizing it and I'm speaking it back, eventually I'm going to be able to do it. It's never going to happen. There's going to be far and few between examples where it does happen. And that's only because that person's natural learning ability was still a little bit more open. But it's very likely that person's just going to fucking do it.
I want to explain it in a specific way, and it's just a way to perceive it. Sorry. I don't think perceptualize is a word.
No, I've never heard that one.
I was going to say conceptualize it.
Is it like a chimenea?
Yeah, exactly. I made that up because it sounds fancy. But he's looking up the word so he can prove that it's real.
HGTV, 10 best chimenea fire pits for your backyard.
Okay,
so suck my dick.
Not going to do that.
So hear me out. It's just a way of conceptualizing, right? Now, a baby, because it has legs, it's like the legs, the fiber and the neurology of the leg is absorbing the information of other people's legs and replicating it. So it's a physical movement. Easy, right? That's why like athletes, right? Basketball players, soccer players, all that stuff. They start when they're really, really, really young, right? Max was a natural at 2 years old. The kid can kick a ball like a little Messi. He can dribble. That was crazy to me because I saw other little kids, they can't kick a ball at like 4. And you're like, dude, look at him go. And he's like dribbling it. That was so funny. This is like years ago. But the point is, because you have the physical legs, the legs are the ones downloading the information from the other legs. Okay. This is how actual learning happens. It's a way of conceiving it, right?
This is actually how it works.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So in terms of being able to integrate something beyond a physical movement, okay. So if you're going to learn to play basketball and take shots, watch a lot of videos, go into the environment, practice it yourself, watch people, right? But when it comes to something abstract, that's why it's easy to get good at sports. It's not easy to get good at business in a certain sense, right? Because for business, if you don't have the program inside of you, there is nothing within you that's going to take that information from other business people and integrate it into you, like the leg.
There's no physical structure there to learn the information.
Right. So because you have the legs, it's going to download from the other legs. You don't have the business program. There's nothing that you can put information in.
Same thing with relationships. Same thing with parenting, all these points. It's all the same because learning is learning. It all works the same way within every person.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what the subject matter is.
This is why in the case studies of where somebody is just doing the destiny process, where someone is just participating in Jinn, it doesn't work. This is why Technitutor is at the foundation of everything. It's not here to take away from anything. It's here to give you the receptors. It's here to give you the legs so that you can then, anytime you go see, you want to learn how to walk, then it downloads the information into your legs. You want to learn about business? Okay. Put in the receptors, the programs for business, and then go watch and listen to business people, and that will download the information into that.
If you're in Jinn, you're in it because you want to create your dreams. You want to get something. You want to have something. It may not be money based in your mind, because it might be like, I just want my relationship with my kids to be really good, and that's the only thing I'm missing. Whatever the point is, you're trying to adopt a new way of doing something that would fulfill, which would be the fulfillment of your dream. It would create the circumstances for that thing to exist that you want. So what we're doing gives you that ability to look at that pattern that you know you need to be able to do to create the thing you want, and to be able to absorb that pattern. If you're a destiny person and you have these principles that you've looked at and you've considered, and you're like, I want to make the world best for all, then to do that, you have to be able to do certain things in reality, like, oh, people don't have enough food.
That is, you're not going to naturally understand that, because if you did, you would already be doing it. If you had,
Yeah, right. It would just be happening like automatically.
Exactly.
So
That's the
if I want
information
everyone
you
to have enough
your
food
environment.
or enough water or whatever it is, I need to go into those systems and direct them to do that. But then therefore I need to be able to speak in a certain way or be comfortable in a certain scenario, like a UN meeting or something like that. That's not going to happen automatically. I need to go and watch, fucking Angela Merkel or somebody, how they act in those meetings. And I need to be able to do what they're doing and stand in that situation. And I need to be able to copy those patterns. So like, oh, I don't want to be like her. She's an evil tyrant. Well, that's just her starting point is different.
Uh-huh.
You still do need to be able to do what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could be a chef, a master chef like Gordon Ramsay, and I can poison your food or I can make it very healthy.
The principles of,
you see what I'm saying? But I still need to be the chef, because that's what people are going to come to eat from, whether my starting point is to poison you or make you healthy.
So let me keep going on this line, because there's some really, really key points. I want to get a little bit spatho with it. But before that, the reason why you would perceive anybody as superior to you is because you don't have the programming inside of you. And so you're wondering, how does that person do it? Because you
They must
can't
be
naturally
special.
perceive that. Say it again.
They must be special. That's the thinking.
Exactly, right? And so if you don't have the receptors to actually understand what that person is saying in a way that's like, oh, that's obvious. What's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. Because you don't understand the practicality of what that person's saying, because you don't have the receptors for it. You don't have the vocabulary integrated you already. You're going to create a bunch of ideas and images and all this stuff in your mind of like how that person is like, wow. That's not going to be grounded in reality. And it's from the starting point of, I'll never be like that person. Now that person, okay, whoever
Isn't
you're
it the
perceiving
same pattern as Jesus? Like, I can't be like that person.
Exactly. Because when you think of the
amazing.
Jesus story, you think of like he's like floating around, and when he flipped the tables, it was like elegant or some shit. It's like he was, if he was real, he was just a dude, and he knew how to spray some spells,
And he
And
drove
so-
a Lamborghini.
Exactly. Relative to that time.
Going
Okay.
around in his Lamborghini spanking people.
I want to make a video where it's like a guy with long hair, like the classic Jesus look with the robes, and he's like hanging out the Lamborghini. And it's like a slow motion shot of it, like spinning a donut, and he's like hanging out of it, And he's
There's
like wind is blowing in his,
And he's spanking everyone as he goes in the circle.
and he's like blowing mud on a bunch of poor children's faces.
And it says, what would Jesus do?
And then everyone is worshiping him like I'm not worthy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want that. I want that for myself. Yeah. Let me into heaven. So, okay. So here's the thing, right? If somebody doesn't understand this, okay, and let me go off here for just a moment, okay? If somebody doesn't understand this and they really want to support other people, they're going to try. They're going to try to give people the information. They're going to try to give people the information, because what they're getting is, oh, the information was given to me and I was able to do it. So if I give the information to other people, then they should be able to do it. Not realizing that those people don't have the receptors. You did have the receptors because you were young, because of a multitude of factors that are very, very specific that resulted in that person being able to download information, right? Because their natural learning ability was kept open. They were found at a young age and cultivated in order to do that. So it's like, imagine you spend years of your life trying to teach people. the ways in order to be successful or in order to be spiritual or whatever the case may be. When it's not working and you're seeing across thousands of people, thousands and thousands, nobody is changing. 0 people are changing. 0 people. What happened when Andrew Yang, he asked about automation in the White House? What are we going to do? They said, we shouldn't talk about that. He said, oh, fuck. Okay. He asked again, what are we going to do about the automation that's coming? They're like, oh, we should look into that. And then the third thing that he heard was actually a solution. They said, oh, we'll re-educate people. He was asking the White House. He said, okay, automation is coming. What are we going to do? We're going to re-educate people. And then he said, okay, cool. I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to go look at the numbers for re-education. The numbers of being able to re-educate people, the success rate was 0 to 15%. Mm-hmm. That means put 1,000 people through this, the way we understand about how to educate people, put 1,000 people through, best case scenario, 150 people make it and can actually do something different. Worst case scenario, literally it doesn't have an effect at all whatsoever. Okay. So imagine that point. Okay. And you're trying to communicate to people, here's how to change, here's how to change, here's how to change. And they're not getting it. And this happens over, imagine you took it on yourself to teach a mass of people about how to be successful. And it fails. It fails. It fails. It fails. It fails over tens and tens and tens of thousands of people over a decade of time. Nothing changes. What would that create inside of your mind about why you're successful?
You're special. Obviously.
Think about, no, seriously, what other conclusion could you possibly draw?
Yeah. I have something they don't have because I'm special. I'm unique. I'm blessed, God ordained, whatever.
Exactly. It's like, you're going to realize like, oh, fuck. Like there was just something about me that I was able to get it and other people are not. And this is really important because how would you explain that to people? Well, Cameron shared a post in our group chat. I don't know if you guys remember, of like, it was talking about like, it was a particular person who's talking about Abraham Hicks books. And there was a person who commented underneath and all that stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. That's how you would explain it. So for those listening, I'll give you the context. The only way that you can explain how to figure out how to be successful is just do what comes natural to you, because that's what I did. Just do what feels right. When the energy is right, go for it. Just listen intently for whatever's going on and just follow that.
I kind of remember like before getting Technotutor, I thought I was special and like unique and everything. And like, because there was a point where I was, still am, smarter than a lot of people. Right. But like, it wasn't something like I could see really clearly. I could not teach other people to think the way that I think.
Yes.
You know,
I have the same point for me, but it wasn't thinking I was smarter. It was more so fearless, like just doing whatever, like that's going too in front of hundreds of people, or you're like,
why are you afraid of that?
Just like do whatever kind of.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I thought I could potentially coach people to do that, but they wouldn't listen. Like their fears were so controlling them that they couldn't hear anything that I was saying. There was no way that I could. Like, there's nothing I could say to change that person to be able to go do the things that I did.
Right.
And to be fearless.
I thought that like, okay, because I have this unique point, then that means that I am going to change the world. That means that I have some special talents and abilities that, only I can use. So, this is what I have to do. But like you're saying, to describe to other people like what to do to be smart, it was just like, no, it's just not going to happen. Sorry, you're just not going to be smart ever.
It's like, how do I explain that? Like, if you don't know how to walk, you don't know how to walk. You can't figure it out. I'm sorry.
Right.
If you're 30 and you didn't learn how to walk when you were a child, you will not figure it out.
Okay, watch, like, let's say Messi does like a camp for 40-year-old overweight guys who want to become professional soccer players. He's going to be like, guys, just buy the merch.
There you go.
So the reason why this is so important, how do you explain that to the average person? How would you explain why, if people were like, you built this thing up, it didn't work at all. It didn't work at all. You thought that after 5 years, people were going to be at this level and nobody's at that level. And then you created this whole following. And people are like, okay, now tell us the next step. Like, how do I be successful? Why is it that you're successful? I need to know. How do I be successful? How are you going to explain that?
I told you from day one.
How are you going to explain that? Because they didn't get it from day one. They didn't get it at day 2.
He's like, I already told you everything, like already.
Right. So how would you explain why you're successful?
You can't.
You're just going to be like, I guess I'm a fucking god. I guess I'm a fucking guru, and some people have it and some people don't. All you can do is let go of trying to be successful, because that's basically evil.
Just
and
give me energy and I'll solve all the problems.
Yeah. But what
Tony Robbins.
that person is missing though is the ability to pause and reflect on what is actually here, what tools are available, because maybe I don't actually have it all figured out.
Yeah.
But
it just requires them to develop that.
But here's the thing,
like next level of self-awareness of like what's
the catch
actually
22.
here.
Here's the catch 22.
Catch it.
And then multiply by 22.
And then give me the 23 after that.
Okay, I'll give you 23. Yeah, that's you have to pay for
That's
that.
a great book, by the way, for anyone who hasn't read that novel. It's really good.
Catch 22. So
Yeah,
what Mitchell was
really
saying, right, is like they're missing that point of consideration of maybe there's some other things that I'm missing right now that if I were to have, that would make everything work. But here's the thing. The reason that person is successful is because they don't give a fuck about anything else. The singular reason why they're actually successful is the reason why they would never do that. Is
They're
because
clear
they don't
on what they want.
Exactly. They made a decision, and decision means to cut off everything else. You have to believe your own bullshit, quote unquote, right? If somebody was selling something, like for example, we know somebody who's selling some kind of, pea water kind of thing. Like you drop it on your hand, you rub it together and it makes you rich. It's like, you have to believe that to some degree if you're going to sell it and actually make money from it long term. You actually have to believe that.
Like they don't think they're lying. Like they believe like I'm so special. If I just piss in a jar and you drink a drop of it, like you're going to be successful.
Right. Think about that.
You got my DNA in you or something.
Exactly. Right.
They're like literally like, oh, it's my DNA. You need to have my DNA. Okay, I'll just jizz on your face. Okay. Yeah. You're like, no.
I'll create a vaccine for your incompetence that contains
exactly.
Maybe that's the secret. mRNA. Create an mRNA vaccine with the success genes. Yeah. But here's the point, right? Within
in that booster.
Exactly. Right.
I just hope the government does a deal with your company so that we can always have the booster.
Oh, true.
It's just everybody wants booster seats.
Mr. Trudeau of Canada.
I'm gonna go make brunch and prep for a phone call, so I'm out of this podcast. But thanks for having me on, everyone. Peace.
See you later, Jess.
Ciao.
Everybody, let's take a moment and watch Jess walk away.
Oh yeah, watch this walk. Yeah.
That's actually pretty good. That was really good.
That was good. That was really good. So the point is, it's like, you have to believe what you're saying, or else, and this is really, really important. I'll tell you something. When I made $30K in a month, and I was like, oh, I'm going to make $50K next month, and then 80,000. And then in 18 months, I'll no doubt have $1 million. It was super obvious to me. But within myself, and Bernard talks about this in this audio called Corporate Leadership and the Fall of Capitalism. He says, the reason you won't be successful is because you still have a bit of integrity left. What does that mean? It means when I was in that position making a lot of money, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't because I was really considerate of the person that was in front of me. I cared
about the customer. Yeah.
it was specifically because I could separate myself from that person to the degree where I'm like, I don't care what happens to you. I
You're
just
a
need to
number.
get, that's it, period. The internal experience of that, I want you to think about that, right? It's like, imagine you were selling pea water, right? And you knew it was a total fucking scam. Could you actually live with yourself? Wouldn't you just blow your brain? Or like you would quit after a bit, right? The only way to solve that, there's only one way. You actually fucking believe it. You convince, and this is why the average person, this is why I tell people on different hangouts and the podcast, you will not be successful because you care.
Now, real quick, people are going to say, oh, I'm reading between the lines of what you're saying. You're saying you guys have just convinced yourself. You just believe in TechnoTutor.
Oh, right.
This, yeah, right. Yeah. True.
Here's the alternative before you get too far.
It's good.
You actually have something that actually works. Just like a gym, for example. We keep using that example because it's such an obvious concrete. It fucking works. There's no belief required. You could see the result. It takes discipline. It takes dedication. But if people do it, it works.
Oh, you mean you actually believe that if I lift weights,
Right.
I'm
If
gonna.
I
And I'm telling you,
myself
if you don't have
on what
arms,
they
you're not
could.
going to get strong arm muscles. So yeah, it's not like for everybody. But what I'm saying though is we don't operate on belief. Now, maybe some people come in operating on belief, but then they apply themselves and they find out for real. And the people who are more successful or who are successful are the ones who remove the belief and get to the point of, I actually see the point. I see the result. I know. So we're not operating on belief. We know based on actual reality within ourselves, we know, and then we support other people to get to the point where they know because they see the result. It's not about belief. We don't support people to have a belief about what we're doing.
And here's
hold on. That's why we don't play with your making you feel good and all this stuff. We just tell you the truth because we don't want you to follow us based on, we just make you feel good so you believe us. Because that's why people believe, is because they make you feel good so you want to believe. You see what I'm saying? So we don't care about that.
Like, it's actually a really, really important point. And actually, Bernard made this point in this audio called Cult Bashers Are Con Artists. He says, I don't speak in a way to inspire confidence in you. I designed my voice. I changed my voice so that the way I speak specifically does not inspire any confidence. You actually have to consider what I'm saying. When I would talk to Cameron,
it pushes you away.
What was that?
It pushes you away.
Pushes you away, right? When
you
I
have
would
to be like, no, I want to hear what you're saying.
When I was talking to Cameron, like at the very beginning, right? And like maybe it was when I first became a distributor. I don't really know the time, but I'd be like, yeah, like I know that this is the case because blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, stop. You just believe that. You don't actually understand it. Even if it was right, he'd be like, dude, stop. Like, you're just believing us. Stop just listening to me. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, don't you want me to like just listen to what you have? Because the program inside of me of like, there's just leader follower. That's just how it goes. I wasn't thinking that. It was just a program. I'm like, okay, whatever they say, take it in, just like I did my whole life, and then spew it out to somebody else. And that will give me 100% on the test. I was great at that. But that means fucking nothing. And that's why people will fall. If they just stay at the belief.
When you made this point about being successful and you won't be successful because of integrity, that's how the system works. That doesn't mean you have to operate that way with Destiny, TechnoTutor, Jin, etc. You don't. You're going to have to play in the system. Follow the rules of the system. There's laws, things like that. But you don't have to be evil.
Yeah, let me explain that more. And I would say thanks for bringing that back. So the point
Drake's
that
got to go pee, everybody. He's going to go drink some Don Boy or pee water.
Yeah. Whoa.
Oops. Oh. Oops.
We didn't say the name till now. Okay, anyways, that's so funny. I love it.
That guy used to sell like jacuzzis and like spas and stuff like that, right? So I think that's where he's getting the pee water from.
That's pretty good, dude. Oh my God, cat's out of the bag. That's a funny slip.
This is my opinion, by the way. So you can't.
Opinion.
It's just my opinion. Obviously, I don't know if that's where he gets it. He could be just
so okay. So coming to that point, right? Coming to that point. What I was saying is, unfortunately, the reason why I'm with Technotutor is because I can see nobody figured it out. And I spent a fuckload of money trying to figure it out. So did Mitchell. I know he did. Right? Trying to be like, okay, what's the thing that's going to work? Right? And these people actually figured it out. That's why sometimes you get results, sometimes you don't. And from other people, some people get results, some people don't. It's just based off their programming. It's just based off the programming, just based off the program. That's always the answer for any kind of who is successful in e-commerce, who's successful in gin, who's successful. It's just based off their programming. Oh, so we found a tool to change the programming. Okay, got it. But the point is, when you're doing anything other than this, you have to suppress every part of yourself that questions things. So going back to what Mitchell was saying of, oh, maybe like that successful person, whoever it is like, okay, maybe I'm missing something that if I had it, if I considered it, it's like, that's the thing that can replicate programming in each human being. You can program the human being in order to hear what I have to say. That person's not going to consider it because they turned off the part inside of them that is looking for something else ever for the rest of their life. Right? That's why they're in that position. So coming back to this is why I gave up making 30, 40, 50K in a month to do this. I went back, I fucking worked at a laundromat where I'm like folding shitty underwear and bloodstained panties and shit like that.
That you owned.
Right. Yeah. But it's like, I was
getting
getting
people context. So like,
Wait,
I was getting nothing out of it.
Underwear?
Laundromat, not the bloodstained pants.
Oh, okay.
he owned the
No.
laundromat. Yes. Thank you for clarifying.
Exactly.
It might
That
have
was
been his
other
pants,
people's
too, I don't
shit.
know.
Right. But I was getting paid like $500 a month. Like it was total dog shit. But because I could see the point of like, dude, anything that I try to do aside from this, and I was walking in process for enough time to
imagine somebody going like, oh, you're so arrogant. They have no idea what you've walked through and like what you were willing to give up and to push yourself. They have no fucking idea. They've never done anything.
Like you just care
about
money.
They're just jealous.
Like,
they're just jealous. And it's like, they're not willing to do what you did and actually listen to you and be like, tell me what you actually are doing.
And the people who do, well, he's on the podcast right there. It's Mitchell.
Right.
Like, for example, right? It's
They're
like
pointing at me.
Fucking no.
Cameron listens to you too sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's really good. But the point is, like, Mitchell was just like, dude, I'm teachable. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then after a certain point, he's like, I understand what I need to do. He stopped calling us for help in any way. Right?
This is the whole point. Like, I didn't treat you like a follower.
Yeah.
I could have taken that point you had and been like, yep, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, if you're going to hold on to that belief, just fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck off until you're done with it and then come back and I'll explain whatever you want to know that I know.
And every time I called you that I was like, I want the answer. You're like, go use the tools. So you can develop your own
I supported you to become a self-leader from the perspective of just not supporting the point of you remaining a follower. That's all. It wasn't like I fucking did anything for you. It wasn't like I'm the one working in the fucking laundromat.
Mm-hmm.
You did all the things. I just didn't support that point. Mm-hmm. And then when you met Mitch, you did the same thing for him. So now he's moving himself, he's achieving, he's getting things, but he's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. He's not looking for a leader and he's not looking for followers. So it's going to look different. And what everyone else is doing.
And now the people that Mitchell's introducing to process is like, look at them. Same thing is happening, right? Which is amazing, right? So the point is, people don't know how to create equality. That's why it always becomes a leader-follower situation. That's what they got programmed with. They don't understand why they were programmed with that. They think that they're special. They think that they're channeling from God and all this stuff. They don't know how to replicate that. The reason I went to working in a shit environment with the lowest possible class of people.
Oh my God. That's the problem. We're telling people that there is no God that fucking knows. And that all that stuff coming from that side of things is deception. That's exactly what Bernard said, which we looked at for ourselves. And now the people who are like, I'm channeling God, they don't want people to fucking know that's not real.
Yeah.
That's why the system is not the system. You know what I mean?
But this
Yeah,
is what
yeah.
I wanted to explain. It's like that person's never going to question to that point because that's how they got into that position. Right?
It will.
And well, it's gonna come.
It just
Cameron,
might not be in this life.
Cameron, when it's gonna come is the exact same way that you were describing of why we don't change things when the pain is this much.
Right.
We let things accumulate.
It's like, how much pain do you need?
That just sank in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's like if Job was like, you know, the devil's like raping his daughters and whatever he did. I don't know all the stuff that he did to Job. Hold on, what did he do to Job? Hold on, I gotta look it up.
Killed
What
his entire
did-
family,
Devil do to Job?
took away all his money.
Okay. God first, I like how the way they phrase it. Oh, because it's New Yorker, so they're biased. When God first unleashes Satan on Job, he tells him he must not damage the man physically. So Satan, all he does is just kills Job's children, his servants, his livestock, takes away everything, right?
Yeah.
Imagine at that point, Job being like,
Do the same
I
thing.
don't even know what to say. Like,
Yeah, like I'm just gonna do the same thing.
that's it? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah, what do you give me some more? Like,
Someone's like, Joe, do you want to change? He's like, no, I'm fine with this. Don't
Wow.
fuck off.
oh, did something happen?
And so the point of all of that is to say, when you don't know how to create equality, you will try to control. There's no other solution. That's the best solution that you'll come up with in your mind. Right? Now, the reason I was able to leave all of that and stop experiencing that suppression of blah, 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 the reality is it was really fucking hard when I became a distributor because it actually required me to understand things. It actually required me to actually change outside of my programming. It required me to be like, oh, I'm actually here to support people, not just do whatever the fuck I was doing before, where you never have to talk to anybody for real, right? Like, for example, Mitchell came from the e-commerce world. It's like, how much do you really have to develop as an individual to be successful in e-commerce?
Right.
No,
You automate everything so you never have to deal with people.
Yeah, but I saw firsthand, like, for example, the guy I was learning from, he ended up in the hospital because he just burned himself out multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Every
that part.
single man. And we're seeing this because Kian worked with a lot of people and they're making millions, all that stuff. All of their shit got destroyed. All of it.
Yeah.
Every single time. It never works. We have this other young guy. My brother trained him when he was 15. He dropped out of high school. He was so committed. He starts crushing it, making $100K a month.
Is this the guy I know?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. And so he started making $100K a month. And then, you know, we split paths. It's like, hey man, like check out what we're doing because you're
You
going
can
to
come back later, like, hey, check this out.
Exactly. Right. And so he's crushing it. He's like, yeah, for sure. It's like, it's cool. But like, you know, I don't need to change like all this stuff. And he's telling me how fucked up he got on Instagram. He messaged me from Instagram one day. And I'm like, hey, like what brought you to Instagram? Like he's super focused. He's like, I haven't masturbated in like 6 months. I gotta get rich. I'm like, holy fuck, this guy is not fucking around. My point is he would isolate himself just to make money so that he can focus. No girls, no friends, no nothing. I'm like, why are you on Instagram? You know, that's so crazy, right? Why are you sending me this meme? He's like, oh, I got lonely. He got lonely, so he got onto Instagram. Think about what you would be going through. My point is that person, they got hospitalized by just extreme migraines. No, nothing happened, but just extreme migraines. The guy that he learned from that we kind of worked for long time ago, he was hospitalized for 5 fucking years.
Wow.
But he became really successful. He's like, I'm a man of God. I rebuke those words. You know, I make money come into my account. That's how he would speak. Got hospitalized he's like, the demons were trying to get me, you know, all this stuff. He was hospitalized for 5 fucking years. or he got sick for 5 years and he was hospitalized for a period of time there. There is consequence to separating yourself from life, because you can't separate yourself from life.
Mhm.
Life is all interconnected. So if you try to separate yourself from life, it doesn't work. Try to separate a tree from all the other resources that a tree is connected to. It doesn't work. Tree's going to
Yeah,
die.
gets sick and dies.
So why would we be any different? But my point is, they don't understand that. They don't know what we know. But the thing that made them successful is, I'm not listening to anybody. So thinking that you can listen to the successful person about how to be successful, you have no idea what it actually takes. So this is why I tell people, I'm talking to the people who listen to this. You don't have what it takes to be successful, because you're not 100% fucking evil. Sorry.
Successful
In the system, in business.
like the bullshit you're trying to do,
Yes. Yeah.
which you're competing with all the people who are fucking evil.
Yes.
Who are willing to isolate themselves. That's the point.
And they'll, kill your children and kill your livestock and all that stuff.
They're exactly. And they'll say they're the man of God when they're really just unleashing Satan on you.
Mm-hmm. And so that's why what you're seeing from Technotutor over to anybody who's watching for Technotutor for a period of time, it's a steady growth, because the reality of what this is, it is the only situation in the world where it's actually merging purpose and money.
Yes.
And what it requires of you is to actually be a fucking, I wanted to say God, but I'll just say it anyways. It actually requires you to be a fucking God over time. And let me specify that, because I know that might be crazy, right? I just mean it requires you to be able to create with your words really effectively. Really effectively. At any point, it's so funny when people talk about how, for example, like there's my business life and there's my personal life. No, all of it is just you.
It's all just life.
Exactly. So this is why in the distributor group, we're always supporting one another in our relationships. And if something, really intense happened over the last month or something, you can talk to us. We can go through that. Right.
The reason why people have a problem when you say like be God is because their definition of God is the slave master with a bunch of slaves and followers.
Subconscious.
So, well, I mean, even that's what the songs they sing is.
Right. I don't think they're aware of that point.
But what I'm saying is that's what they're saying. Oh, you just want to have everybody worship you. And it's like, but do you? Okay, first of all, that's not my definition of God.
Right.
First of all. Second of all, do you actually have a problem with that? It's just you don't want it to be me, because you think you're equal to me and not God. So he's allowed to do it, but not me. Second of all, that's not my definition of God. So that's not, as we've been very clear about, that's not what we're talking about when we say be God. We mean be God in a human form. You upgrade your vocabulary to God level, where you take responsibility for all things that you can affect in the individual form you're in, and support others to stand up within that point. Like, there's no room for followers in a human form any more than there is in a tree form. Trees can't have followers. Like, you can imagine they could, but that would fuck things up, wouldn't it? If the trees were like, oh, everyone follow me, pick up your roots, trees, and just follow me. I am the one root system. Like, everyone would die because that one seat tree can't support everybody. So the 1% can't support everybody. So they're like, oh, just get used to not having things. I mean, come on.
It's like,
so what we're saying is, no, like, everybody become the 1%, which I know the math, that means 100%. Everyone be at that level, take responsibility for the systems. And then we can support each other. One person can't support everyone. That's the problem, is when you put all that kind of pressure on God, eventually they become resentful. Like, as it's like you're enslaving God, because you're not becoming equal to God. That doesn't mean having followers. That's the incorrect definition of that word. Is that God means responsibility, actually. It's like Bernard has this great line. I don't remember what audio it's from, but he said the concept of God through religion and through the system and the elite became a point in terms of how it was impulsed in our world, it became a point to fear instead of a point to emulate.
Mm. It was
So we're
supposed to
saying-
represent like an ideal, right?
The problem is people say like now in spirituality, they go, oh no, I am God, you are God, we are all God, but you're just staying the same as you are. It's like, well, that's not God. That's not like, that's just the other side of the fear. It's just, you're just desiring to be God, but
It's
you're
like
not.
that's like the slaves going like, no, I'm the slave master, but
No,
they're
I'm
still
totally
like
the
out
master,
there,
yeah. We're all
fucking hoeing and
masters.
shit.
Right. Dancing to the beats.
How am I going to pay my rent?
Right. It's like, no. That's not what we're saying. We're saying be gods, like become gods, be them.
So
Yeah, go through the process of becoming a god.
Yeah, developing your vocabulary. God is words. That's all it is. Like
yeah, like that. the
God in
conversations
human
in-
form is the ability to use words responsibly to create heaven on earth. That's all it is.
and taking responsibility for everything that is here. So it's like
Right.
in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was
In
God.
the beginning was the pursuit of happiness.
Right. Right. But anyways, so in the beginning was the Word, right? There's a reason why God spoke, right? And he spoke and he said, "Let there be light." And God, what is God? It's the Word. The only way to develop the enlightenment necessary is by integrating the vocabulary, because God lets there be light. Words lets there be enlightenment. Right?
Well, even that's what we call the Enlightenment historically, is when we upgraded our vocabulary to develop and integrate science into our vocabulary.
And now we
as
call it the
humans.
enlightenment of like when you get really fucking high. Right, Mitchell? Right, my G?
Yeah.
That's what me and Mitchell connected over, was like this point of like he was living with this guy, right? And he had the enlightenment experience. I'm like, what do you mean by that? He's like, like he realized we're all one.
We're all made out of light, and this is that's like the baseline reality is we're all this light, and then it's all morphing in this different way.
I'm like, dude, you had to take drugs to realize that. Like, didn't you like pay attention in high school chemistry? Like, they already fucking told you that. Like, didn't you pass that test? Like, now what? Like, we're all light. Okay. Well, therefore, there doesn't have to be any suffering or anything. We can all be in bliss.
No, that
Aren't
light
we?
is still raping that light over there. So, that didn't change.
It's like, hold on, guys, we're not light. That's a lie.
Why would my
Light is a
school
tool.
teach me a lie?
Light is a tool. It's like, imagine you're like, okay, how do I measure things? Well, I'm going to shine light on them. That's going to bounce back and give me information about that thing. You shine the light, you bounce back, it goes into your machine, you look at it and you're like, guys, I think that thing's made of light. Like, wait, didn't you like use light to bounce off of it? Like, yeah, but like everything about it, like all the features that I'm looking at in this machine, this would only be possible if it was light. Like, you're using light to look at it. That's what you're seeing. You're just looking at the light. You're not looking at the actual thing because you don't know how to see in darkness. So all you can see is light because you think that's all. It's like,
Right. So
what's here is physical substance. That is dark.
but you can only see that if you have the Word. That's why God lets there be light. The Word is what will give you the awareness necessary to be like, oh, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So
You have to be high to believe it.
right.
You have to get high to be like, oh, I realized this and I felt really good at the time. Therefore, and it's like, imagine you're not even smart enough to realize all you were doing was looking at the higher level code behind the simulation. You're just looking at, that'd be like if you were in a computer game and you're in a virtual reality and you forgot you're in the virtual reality and you were like, guys, everything is a computer program. Reality is a computer program. I'm like, dude, you're in a computer program. Yes. Didn't you remember like you're in a computer program? Guys, everything is a computer program. Like, yeah, I know. Like, you went into a computer program. Like, everything is light. Everything is light, guys. I'm like, yeah, like there's light. Like, your consciousness, you're participating in that. Don't you remember? Like, you came here to participate in consciousness. But there's something more fundamental than that. Like, how does light make things exist? Does light explain its own existence? It doesn't. It's just a thing that exists. I mean, Jesus Christ, there's no one's gonna be able to process this. It's so obvious. It's like you're placing emotional value on words and then thinking that you figured something out, but that doesn't support you to take any level of real self-responsibility for this world. Like, if you know it's all light, how does that make it that children aren't raped and in poverty and sent to war? If everybody just knew it was light, I'm like, but if you knew it was light, you'd be able to manifest stuff, right? Yeah, because you don't understand frequency of vibration. Okay, so like the elite, right? You could just create anything you want, right? Yeah, exactly. So you can create like weapons, like bombs and shit, and like fighter jets and like factories and stuff like that, and you can enslave people. Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't do that if you really understood the light. But you'd be really good at manifesting, right? Yeah. Like the elite, right? Yeah. Well, shit.
And where did you learn these secrets? From the elite, right? Okay.
Right.
So
yeah, they told you.
They know that.
They told you that, and then you don't have to do anything. Yeah. Oh, well, but yeah, but well, yeah. I don't know.
Let me just go over here and feel good.
Let me go jerk off.
That point that you made of like they have an emotional understanding of words. Like their words are emotional.
Like the word light represents an emotion because you were fucking high when you had that word. That's why that programming was accessed at that point, because the way the system is designed, it knew you were in an emotional state. So you would be imprinted that emotion on that word so that you would go back and pretend like everything is what it's not. And you would emotionally feel connected to it.
That's obviously like the big problem. Like it's what Asif was bringing up more recently with like, just having a 1% inefficiency in a word. I was listening to an audio over the weekend, and I love this line. It was like so brilliant. The line was just basically like, okay, there's a few things you need to do differently if you want to become successful. And those things are everything that you're doing. There's just slightly off. It's just a little subtle thing within everything that you're doing. Right. And so to go through and describe every little thing is so much, but you have to change. Everything.
I was just going to ask when is that revealed, but
Well, I mean, it's revealed kind of early on, actually.
But you can't process it if you're not.
But that's talked about at a much higher level, more specifically.
Right. Yeah. But he when he says it, he's like, I hope you get this. Like people laugh when I say this, but it's serious. You have to change everything. And it's really like that with the words. And what people don't realize is that their understanding of words is all just emotion. It's just all pure emotion. They don't actually have any understanding of like what this actual word even means, or like, I brought it up before.
Because you learned the vast majority of your vocabulary, 99% of it, when you were a child. And is it stressful being a parent?
Yeah. Yeah.
So were people going to be very and are your parents really fucking immature?
Yeah.
So in the same sense of the drug thing I was talking about, the drug trip, you're learning all of your vocabulary from people who are very immature. And they're like, you need to respect me. And it's like, well, what's respect? Respect is when you do what I say because I'm your parent. And you're like, okay, so that's what that word means. Got it. Next. And you absorbed that, and that became you, and that became your definition. And you're like, oh, I don't have emotional definitions of words. I'm like, okay, so let's go through word by word and actually check and see what your definition actually is.
Right.
You ask me, when you ask me a word, I'll tell you what it means. And you're like, oh yeah, that is what it means. I looked it up. That wasn't the verbatim, like I memorized it. It's like, you obviously know what that word means. Oh, and there's another there. Oh, that's one of the other definitions. I didn't even realize it meant that.
So that's the cool part, is like, if you look at like throughout Kevin's training, right? It's like, for anybody who's followed, the nuggets of gold and science of personal mastery, it's like all of it just becomes centered around vocabulary. Right.
Yeah. Isn't it?
And it's like, but what happens for anybody who tried to do that dictionary thing, Mitchell, right? It's like, how fucking hard is that?
Well,
Yeah.
you can do the discipline of it, but like,
So, but
doesn't
even
do
that,
anything.
right?
Doesn't mean
even
he's
that-
wrong about the importance of words, but it's like he's still trying to use the approach of,
But
which
see,
is not
he
a
didn't-
fault to him, but he's like, just write it down and repeat it a bunch and study
Right.
it. And
But
hope
he
you put
didn't
it.
have to do that, right?
Right.
Like he didn't have to do that. But he's looking for the best way of how can I replicate the actual secret.
How can I get people who literally can't just see the obviousness of what I'm saying, who are
Mhm.
not smart like I am,
Mhm.
him, to just understand what I'm saying? Okay, well, you need to go back and like relook at every fucking word you know.
Mhm.
But the problem that everyone else is going to miss is you're not using your natural learning ability. So it just becomes an exercise in futility. It's a great exercise for developing discipline, and there's definitely value in that.
Right.
But in terms of the ultimate result you're looking for, you have to ask yourself, if you've been doing it for 2 years and you're still not, and you're like, literally your life has not changed, and in fact, it's only gotten worse. Like, what has really happened?
So that's all he's saying. What Drake was
It's
saying.
not because what he's saying is not correct.
It's really correct.
It's just the delivery mechanism is being missed, and it's no one else's fault. That'd be like blaming Tesla because you don't have access to electricity. Their job is to make the fucking electric car. Now, can they also work on the electricity? And that would be in their best interest because then they can get more car, obviously. But that's not their company. Somebody else has to come in and be like, hey, we're going to work with you and make sure you put the electricity in place. So now you can fucking recharge your car and you can drive it more than one time. That's just how collaboration and masterminding and things work. That's why we're here, is to do that for everybody, not just Jen and everything, but everyone in the world.
And so that's the cool part of why it's like, you'll just see him. He talks about that point of, there's the one thing that you need to change is everything. And then he shows you what is he exactly talking about in his most advanced training. It's your vocabulary. We just have the mechanism to do that. That's why when my brother got it, when me and Kian got it, right? 10x hydrogen training. Same thing for Drake. Share that with Mitchell. He's listening to Your Wishes Your Command over 30 times, reading 50 to 70 books a year. That shit was crazy, dude. Honestly, I was blown away about how committed you are to change. But then he gets tech computer. 10x is his training, right?
And the things that people don't see. Like I've been watching like Muge and Megan's posts, or their stories on Facebook, because you see those first thing. And like how her and Maylat and Christine, how they're all like hanging out, like going and doing stuff. I'm like, that is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I know we got to wrap it up soon, but I just want to comment on this point real quick. It's like, because remember Jess was talking about in the beginning about how when she went to college and stuff, and there was all these like gossipy, like fucking annoying women, and it's just like, oh shit. But like now you have women actually coming together based on principle, and their men that they're married to in relationships with are doing things based on principle, and they're coming together to get that sisterhood thing that women need.
Yeah, they were telling me how they were supporting each other in different.
But they're not sitting around going, "Oh, can you believe so and so?" Like, this fucking bitch, you know? Like, they're fucking hanging out, doing fun stuff that any woman would want to do. They're not getting drunk. They're hanging out and they're looking at ways that they can build themselves up, each other up, and whatever they're working on. I don't know what's going on. They're not telling me. I'm just saying I can see the result of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, doesn't that make you feel good? Because you can be like, hey, I can go and do what I need to do. And they're having fun.
And the cool part is, like, I think it was yesterday, we had Carl come over and my brother was over and we were masterminding and seeing where Carl can walk through different points. And we were talking about different points of what he's learned and all that stuff. And then after he left, Noah came over and oh my God, like Noah has completely changed. It's mind blowing. I'm going to tell you guys afterwards, like after we turn this off, but it's like the best stories are actually the ones that we only share internally because people wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And people don't care. It's like, even this point I'm sharing about the women, it's like people probably just like, okay.
But it's like
it's actually the most significant.
Look at the story that Bruce told about his son, his stepson
standing up for him. Yeah.
Exactly. For the first time forever. When he would go to sleep at night thinking his son's going to kill him.
Yeah.
It's like he shared that on a private distributor call.
Right.
Nobody's going to hear about that. Right. And then look at what Asia was sharing. Right. She shared it in the distributor group, right? About her process with Jin and TechnoTutor and the merger of them and all that. So the point is, it's very simple. It's very simple. Just the amount of things that you have to change in order to get what you want out of life. Right. Yeah. The amount of things that you have to
What we've
change
been saying, isn't it?
in order to get what you want out of life is not going to come from you listening to audios, even listening to this fucking podcast.
That doesn't mean don't do it though.
Exactly. But you have to do the underlying factors in order to really get the value out of those points, which is what Cameron just did. He did the holy trifecta. Have the relationships, reach out. If there's things that you're getting triggered from on this podcast, talk to us. Right? Did you say that you could become a god? But I don't believe that's what. Okay, cool. Let's talk about it. So you can actually get my real perspective, right? Rather than just going into a bunch of assumptions and some emotional turmoil. It's like, you don't even know how to solve that yet. It's really important, right?
You think you know something about reality?
Yeah.
And you can't even process
You're like
emotionally,
experiencing stuff inside of yourself, right?
Like you're not even at kindergarten level then.
I mean, oh my God. If you want to see like straight up conflict and then me just explaining one rational point and then people being like, oh, that makes total sense. Go to my post about the parking spot. You have so many people who came in hot, like, this is so good. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you're missing the point. It's not about being excited about simple things. It's not about gratitude. It's about the point of thinking you can manifest things without having to do with it. And then they're like, oh, that totally makes sense. Yeah, you're totally right. Sorry, I reacted to this. It's like, oh, damn, you're still at that point where you're just reacting to things and then responding and like putting
Not
yourself
even
out
thinking
there.
it through, asking questions, considering.
It's like, you didn't even have to comment. Just take some time and really be like, is that what I saw? And then that's the person being like, oh, everybody's just following headlines and blah.
Yeah.
So the point is like, share, subscribe, comment, do the fucking process.
Come on Friday.
If you don't have a business, get a fucking business, because you're never going to understand business.
TechnoTutor business specifically.
Exactly. Because otherwise you're never going to be successful, because you have to be a total fucking asshole to be successful outside of this system. We've created, the kingdom of heaven is within TechnoTutor, and we're creating that outwards.
We have the Trinity.
But think about that, right? You know, the kingdom of heaven was within. It's like,
yeah.
I'm changing myself so that I'm expressing into my relationships. And then all of us as distributors individually changing ourselves is we're taking the hard way. We're taking the long way. And that's what's creating us into, that's the pressure that's creating fucking diamond. I was gonna say something way cooler than diamonds, but it's okay. Right? Even in that symbol of the pressure of having to change is what's creating us into real men. That's why Mitchell and Mayer made that video of how TechnoTutor made us real men, right? So we're creating the heaven within. We have the conditions in our system. The TechnoTutor business specifically is set up so that you can do what is best. Everywhere else, the system is set up so that you only win when you are only self-interested. This system is set up where you can do what is best. That is why you'll be successful in it. And we're creating that heaven from internally and creating it outwards. So don't sleep. Don't sleep on us, homie.
Nice.
Anything else?
See you next time.
That's it. Okay.
Oh, one more thing.
No, that's it.
Wait, one more thing. We're going to the gin event soon. It's like really soon. I don't know if we're going to we probably will. Me, Mitch, Drake, or something like that. Because I know you're going to be traveling, I think, Cameron, on the Monday.
I got to jump.
Oh, you're talking about the next podcast?
Or no, that's in 2 weeks. Well, we have one more.
I think the next one we'll definitely do, yeah. Mitch had to go do a meeting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. So I guess we'll talk about it in the next podcast. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.